I've never done this before.
Just read.
It's always Joe.
Read the script.
Read the script. Know your lines. Hey everybody, welcome back to Human Reaction, where I am not Joe, I am Kyle Mack, and this is your weekly source for independent commentary on news and politics. David, what are we doing today?
Hey, good job, buddy.
This is my first time ever doing
well
that.
Well done. So the Biden campaign, well, the administration rather, there isn't a campaign anymore, that died. It accomplished something that isn't starting a new war, Adam.
That's amazing.
And we have Adam with us today.
Yeah, we're also here with Adam. By popular demand. We had people in the Discord demanding that Dr. A come back.
Did they not watch a show before? Is that why?
I don't know. It's our longest listeners. They love you, buddy. So yeah, they accomplished something, and it was forcing the longshoremen to not single-handedly end the Kamala campaign. So there's that. A lot of people noticed this week that DC cares less about the victims of natural disasters in America than global hegemony. It's not a joke. It's just true.
It's just sad.
Iran escalates with Israel like an incel with a new dating coach. A lot of misses.
that was pretty good, actually.
Close ones, though.
Hey, you only need to hit once.
Yeah, right. And in the skiff, we're walking through occult influences in Hollywood with specifically the career of Hollywood director Stanley Kubrick. Right? Did I say that right? Kubrick?
Yeah.
Kubrick. NSA faking the moon landing, conspiracy theory, and how it all ties to Diddy Combs.
Oh, man. Juicy.
It's going to be a wild ride in the skiff episode.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the skiff. I don't want to overshare during the regular port. I'm just kidding.
Exactly. Well, we got to save the good stuff for the paid members. Get the real stuff.
Yeah, we're going to dive deep into these conspiracies. That's where we got 1,000 bottles behind this curtain right here.
That wasn't the only thing they found in that mansion, you know.
Well, before we jump into it, make sure to like, follow, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do whatever it is on the platform that you're on. And also, if you want to figure out how to support us, become a member at humanreactionpod.com, where you can see all of our merchandise and everything else on how to support us right now. And also join our Discord, where we got memes like this one. Dave, explain this.
The Trump campaign taps hillbilly power to conquer America in the name of House Trump. And this is a great meme, right? I mean, it has so many great touch points. You got Trump with the beard, which is awesome. I think he should rock the beard all the time, personally.
Oh, yeah.
That looks great. We must cultivate hillbilly power when he's got Barron next to him. Obviously, who is the analogy for Paul Atreides, right? In the Dune series.
Oh, yeah.
And you got the Fremen version.
He's just giggling to himself.
I know, it's so good. It's a perfect meme.
He's just nerding out over this right now.
You got the Fremen, who's of course of JD Vance with the blue eyes because he's been consuming the spice melange.
If you are a small business owner looking for exponential growth, you have to connect with Adam Thuen at Intellectual Patriots. He will revolutionize your business game and help you get to the next level. Adam can streamline your business practices and advertising strategies to improve your bottom line. His expertise in data engineering means he can build you the systems you need to collect and analyze market data. His mission is to provide you with invaluable insights to fuel your success, from grant writing and business proposals to digital systems integrations, even AI management. Intellectual Patriots is a one-stop shop for cutting-edge solutions. Don't wait another second. Visit intelpatriots.com to learn more. That's INTEL patriots.com. This episode is brought to you by Revved Up Promo, the official apparel partner of Human Reaction. Revved Up is a premier full-service shop specializing in laser engraving, screen printing, and embroidery. Not only are they now making all of our apparel right down the road from us, they can do the same for your brand and ship it to you anywhere in the world. Revved Up helps you navigate the extensive universe of merch options and uses state-of-the-art techniques to showcase your brand in its very best light. So if you want to support our show and our generous sponsor, you can now do so by buying our merch and by turning to Revved Up Promo for your own custom apparel needs. Reach them at revveduppromo.com. That's with 2 V's and 2 P's, or just check the show notes for a link.
And it also applies into with the debate that we watched, which everybody should watch our live streams.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, with this meme, do you think it would have been that other lady who was like the daywalker, the go-between? Because he's like, went to Yale and he's like half hillbilly, half
It depends on how you
polished.
interpret JD Vance, right? I mean, he's obviously a leader of the hillbillies, right?
Because that guy's, isn't it the like super fundamentalist Fremen guy? Is that the guy he's on top of, right?
That's true.
If I know my Dune.
Depends on how you interpret it. Is he a true believer in the America First agenda? Or is he just
that is the open question.
Yeah.
He wasn't in the beginning. He fell for all the narratives around Trump in the beginning.
That's it. I don't think he's changed his views too much.
No, I don't think he has
like
either.
not that much.
I think he changed his view on who Trump was.
Yes.
And I think that's pretty genuine, actually.
And that's true for this guy. He changed his view about Paul Atreides in the movie. Right.
That's
At
true.
first, he's just the new boss in town. Now, then he turns into the chosen one.
All right. I like it.
Yeah. Well, and
Did I convert you on the meme?
Yeah, you remember me. No, I'm a believer now.
well, and
I'm that easy, David.
Well, and speaking of all that, the JD Vance, a lot of people are saying that he had a very good debate performance and that he's probably the future of the Republican Party with how well he's been performing and how like on point he was.
On point.
And did you guys feel that way?
Well, we theorized when he was picked that a big reason for this is that his ability to carry the America First message beyond Trump after the campaign, after his administration's over, assuming he wins this year. That's I think it's a reasonable case given his background, given his viewpoints.
Yeah. Well, and actually, so maybe this is a good time to kind of pitch our live streams. We've been doing these live streams on all the debate performances. Adam was in the chat.
Yeah.
The chat was fire.
The chat was very fire. It was very fun.
It was hilarious.
It was actually a pretty standard debate, like from what we're used to having.
Yeah, they went old school.
Pre-Trump era.
They went old school on us.
Yeah, that's why Kyle was literally just paying attention to the chat the entire debate.
Because it's a snooze fest.
This is
not
boring.
fun.
They're talking about policy.
Yeah, it was like they're talking about real issues. This is crazy. This is terrible.
Yeah, but
what are you doing?
But in this constrained ritual way of the old way, like you can talk policy in an 8-hour podcast, and I could see your like, you know what I mean? It's the internet age. So
Yeah, and you can be entertaining about it, but it was straight up. And I think maybe some of the dynamic was, and this is I really realized after the fact, was I think Walsh showed up ready to sling some fucking mud. Like he was there ready to just like slam on Trump, and then he goes up against Oxford debate style, hillbillyology guy who just it was so nice. It like evoked the Midwestern out of him, and then he didn't know what to do. Right?
It was really cordial, actually.
Yeah.
They're just
It was
like, yes, I agree with you on
cordial.
that, but where I differ, like, they're just like,
Right.
what is this?
he gets Kyle like shaking, like that's a really good thing. We should do this. I think I'll do this in Minnesota. Sounds awesome.
But there was one thing in particular, and probably the highlight of the night from the live stream, where we were doing some research on Tim Walz, and we got this clip out of it.
We're really using research loosely here.
Research, yeah,
modeling. I prefer modeling. That's
Modeling.
yeah.
This is what we want you to think. Comes from this clip. Go.
There's some visual representation that for the audio only listeners we'll have to explain kind of what's going on screen. But for those that are viewing, you'll be able to see it. And I definitely recommend like watch on the YouTube or Spotify or something for this clip right here.
That are viable
Joe just
and
asked
workable for
AI
a lot of American
if Tim
families.
Walz was a furry, and I think we got an answer.
Can you clarify how that will solve the child care shortage?
Well, because as Tim said, a lot of the child care shortages, we just don't have enough resources
Interesting.
going into the multiple.
We'll continue to
people who
research.
Could be providing family.
As your campaign has
amphibian.
promised. Is that
Amphibian.
realistic?
I mean,
I think we got to research this
I think the
amphibian
issue here
thing
is
first next.
if those members of Congress.
The top
Don't worry, we're
issue
looking
for
into the frog thing
Americans
for you
after the
guys.
economy-
Unfortunately, we have all of the negative policies that have come from the Harris-Biden
Pulls up a
administration.
frog with
I
glasses.
believe
That
that
was the
have a
best
threat
one,
to
I think.
democracy in
That was
this
pretty
country, but unfortunately,
With those
it's
cheeks,
not the
right?
threat to democracy that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want to talk about. It is the threat of censorship. Next 40 years. Proud, especially given that I was raised
That
by
one's
two
pretty good.
blue
That one's
collar
pretty good.
Democrats to have the endorsement of Bobby Kennedy.
That's
Jr.
Because the chat was debating on whether Tim Walz was a furry or if he was some sort of
They don't
amphibian.
agree with you.
I was going to go with gopher, but then
do you think that works,
Minnesota,
guys?
number two, like
But we're united.
pro walls from what I wanted.
Donald Trump refused to acknowledge this. And the fact is that I don't think we can be the frog in the pot.
And frog in the pot.
We just had our cat moment.
Oh my gosh.
The American flag. Minnesota.
Yeah, so it just became this weird thing where we were going on for like 10 minutes back and forth talking about this frog thing with the chat. The chat was like giving us ideas. And then like 5 minutes after all that stuff was going down, he's just going in there and he uses the exact term frog in the pot.
Right.
And it was like we manifested some sort of
Willed it into
mimetic, it was like
existence.
some sort of mimetic energy that was a part of that right there.
It's the meme magics, man. Can't underestimate it.
Yeah.
Can't be stopped. Can I talk about how if we give Kyle, a suit and a red tie, he's pretty much JD's doppelganger. Are we getting there?
I have the beard
Are we doing
now.
Am I the only one that sees this?
I can see what you're saying there. I can see it.
Like if he shows up in Montana, can you like stand in for like the dangerous spots where it looks like
I'll be his body
especially
double.
like assassination thing is pretty high. I mean, take one for the team
I
here,
think
Kyle.
I think we're about the same height.
There you go. See,
He does seem pretty tall. Is he
I'm
about
pretty.
6'2"?
I imagine.
6'2"?
Yeah, I imagine he's like 6'2".
and he's been training. Have you seen him
he
2
has
years
6'2"
ago?
energy.
He like lost a decent amount of weight.
Yeah.
Well, the
Yeah.
beard helps. He had a fat fucking face.
Yeah.
He had a bit of a soft chin.
He's
before he got
also
that beard going.
has like a tech background and stuff. I can see it.
I like-
He's got a fake tech background. Let me help out my tech bros.
Yeah.
I got to know shit. He knows how
He's
to be
a
a good
lawyer.
lawyer. He knows how to talk to people who went to Yale. He's got his buddy Vivek. He doesn't know how to do anything.
Was
Trust
he
me.
Skull and Bones? Do
Wow.
you know?
Was he Yale?
He went to Yale and
went
he's
to Yale.
powerful.
Always skeptical of the Yale boys.
How do you get into the Senate, Bennett? We're gonna get into that in the skiff. So
Was there a Diddy part? No, I'm not going to put that juju on Vance.
no, we're not manifesting that meme energy.
No,
Not
he's
on our
part of the
boy.
PayPal Mafia crew. That's like a different mafia.
That's it. I did think the assessment of the beard afterwards. You guys see these like New York Times
Oh,
or
yeah.
Wall Street Journal articles? Are like,
yeah.
what does it mean to have a man with a beard in a position of power now?
Oh,
Very
it means-
interesting.
It means he's Hitler.
Means we're headed to the Civil War, boys.
You can't have facial hair in American politics because
Yeah,
Hitler. That's
'cause
it.
Hitler, yeah.
Wow.
It's too masculine or whatever.
well, that was the thing.
But the
is-
eyeliner's less
Yeah.
masculine, so he balances that well, in my opinion.
Dude,
You know what I mean?
I think it's good to have a
strange.
first goth vice president. I'm just saying. I
It
like
is
it.
strange. I noticed it back at the RNC, his announcement, where I was just like, man, they really piled on the makeup on him. But then I just realized when he's just out and about normally, he's just got his eyes for some reason have this like natural eyeliner.
You just
appearance
love
to
looking
him.
at those eyelashes of his.
Yeah,
They're just so thick and luscious.
This debate was actually maybe a time where it seemed like it was toned down more than normal.
He's had the spice.
He's got the spice
Right.
melange.
Yeah, he's got a great team together. He's put together real well. They even said he was a sex symbol. I think if I recall, like that was part of the debate. Like
Wow.
who was more sexy?
Wow.
Kyle. I mean JD.
Well, how about we go to this Walls flop? There was kind of a flop that he had. He's just a knucklehead.
Yeah.
He-
This is him being asked about a flip flop he did. Correct?
Yes.
Oh, no, not a
well,
flip flop.
this
This
is
is him.
China.
Yeah, China.
China.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily flip flop. He was asked. He presented the idea that he was there in China during Tiananmen Square.
Right.
And they're like, but you weren't.
That doesn't math.
So what happened there? And
Yeah,
then here's
it was
his
like
response.
he was there like 2 months later or something.
Yeah. Here's his response.
Liar? He's a liar.
Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy? You have 2
Yeah,
minutes.
well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17, worked on family farms, and then I used the GI Bill to become a teacher, passionate about it, a young teacher. My first year out, I got the opportunity in the summer of '89 to travel to China. 35 years ago, be able to do that. I came back home and then started a program to take young people there. We would take basketball teams, we would take baseball teams, we would take dancers, and we would go back and forth to China. The issue for that was to try and learn. Now, look, my community knows who I am.
I did the same
They saw
thing.
where I
I
was
was
at.
like, dancers?
Look, I will be the first to tell you, I have poured my heart into my community. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that. Those same people elected me to Congress for 12 years.
Idiots.
And in Congress, I was one of the most bipartisan people, working on things like farm bills that we got done, working on veterans benefits. And then the people of Minnesota were able to elect me to governor twice. So look, my commitment has been from the beginning.
And you get the point. He's just a knucklehead.
So
He's just a knucklehead.
what was the first part? I am a really innocent person. I'm innocent. I'm a good person. And I lied to you.
Yeah.
but it's okay because I'm still governor. And the people of Minnesota, let me tell you how that really works. The people of Minneapolis elected you governor, Timmy. It ain't the people who actually do the form and you kind of jump around about. That's not what happened. It's not really hard to figure out. You don't need to be a political scientist in Minnesota to know what's going on there.
What was he a coach of?
Oh, I don't know.
Was he a dance coach? Was he a dance coach?
Is that where the dancers were for?
Yeah, I was like, why was he bringing out dancers?
Your theory of him being gay is way more solid that way.
Dude, like I said, it's not like I'm saying the moon landing was fake. That'll come later. But like that's for this guy being gay. Again, he like kicks his feet when he's so excited and his hands are occupied. This is
do not come.
I kind of sympathize. I kind of agree. I kind of get a weird vibe out of the guy, and I don't know. I don't know if it means he's gay or what.
Well, he did shake his wife's hand, so that was like the.
What did you do?
It's pretty weird.
That was the weird one for me.
One of the weirdest things to me was the wife being asked about the riots during the Summer of Love, and her being like, "We had the windows down so we could smell the burning rubber of revolution."
It's like straight apocalypse now, like the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're full of shit today.
It's like, what is this? It was, but he's a strange dude.
I feel like that stuck out, but not as much as Vance going after the moderators and defending his position in the debate against the people who are supposedly running the debate, which I felt like is probably going to last longer in terms of like people's memory.
Yeah, and here's a clip of that.
And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you,
Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important
we're
because
going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that you guys weren't going to
we're-
fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own
Thank you, Senator, for
leadership.
describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
They were dumb
Thank you,
then and they're
gentlemen.
dumb now.
The
We want to
CBP
have-
One app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut.
She just loved that moment to be
Yeah.
able to put them in their
I
place.
have power over you right now. Look at that face.
Yeah, that's it. They didn't do it again after that, right? And that's the alpha moment that I think a lot of people who watched it and care, are looking will remember.
Well, so I've obviously have friends that are still pretty liberal, and they're seeing it from a totally different perspective.
Sure.
They're like, they see you say you weren't going to fact check, and they're like, oh, like he's clearly like lying is their interpretation.
Yeah. We need a new word. They won that phrase. Fact check is the dumb. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
It's called spinning. That's what we call it.
Yeah.
It's not fact checking. We're going to spin the data how I want, right?
Also, I thought that was a good moment to like let them go back and forth.
Right.
Like they were. That's the point of the debate.
Yeah, not have this constrained thing.
Yeah.
Well, it really begs the question, like, can we be done with this whole thing, like this whole ritual that we do every single election cycle?
The debates?
Yeah, or at least this format of the debates where we have the corporate press, we have these like two moderators that come in that are kind of not even that well known, and then we just kind of put this up there and we just have them give their talking points for a little bit. Like we have new technology now. Yeah. We don't have to do it this way. We could have a 3-hour podcast where people are going back and forth. Right?
I was actually hoping for a cage match.
Or we could do,
we
could get Dana White.
I want to get into that. Would be cool.
Right.
Yeah. I do think this debate style did provoke at least some actual, here's what I think about things. And I did get insight into into both of them a little bit. But we would have got more if it could have been more back and forth, for sure. And next time we welcome the next presidential candidates to come on to the Human Reaction podcast, and I'll host a debate. I'll get into it with them. That'll be fun.
He'll be the guy. You'll be like debating with them. Like,
no, wait! I gotta fact check that real quick. Grok says
Adam will referee a jiu-jitsu.
Oh, absolutely.
That'd be great. We're gonna have to drastically reduce the age of our presidential candidates if that's the case.
Is there like I didn't want to jump. I didn't research the notes that bad. Do you got that clip of him breaking the fourth wall or whatever?
The Vance glance?
The Vance glance or whatever? Like,
that was a very mimetic moment, or multiple mimetic moments, where the memes on Twitter or on X, sorry to dead name, the memes were all just him doing this like stare into the camera.
This like,
look at this shit.
It's like, that's all, folks. They're the Jim glance from The Office.
Exactly.
Well, and it's also, there is a thing where we kind of glazed Vance a little bit going into this, but
I'm gonna come.
My bad. I don't know why that made me giggle.
But really, in like looking at it for real, I think it was kind of a 50-50 of who won this thing. It kind of just depends which angle you're looking at it. It's sort of like what Bennett said, where it's like, if you're kind of at least somewhat on the left, you probably think Walz won. If you're somewhat on the right, you probably think Vance won. But
what's winning is my question. What does winning mean?
That's the question too, because I think the polling right now suggests that there's only 3% of the voting population that's undecided, which is actually really low historically for an election. And it's just like, is it swaying anybody?
Yeah. That pretty much means if it's 3%, it pretty much means it's anywhere from 0 to 5%. Yeah, that's what 3%.
It's like full voting, like employment, like 3% employment, full employment.
That's yeah. And the question is what the penetration was of the VP debate to the general public. I knew you were gonna do it, but that's the word we use.
Penetration.
All right, let's get the presidential debate.
All right.
So what happens when Joe's not here? We just fuck around.
He's the task keeper? Hey, let's get to the next. Are we the next subject?
Yeah, let's do it.
The next subject. I'm filling in for Joe. All right, you turkeys.
Yeah, so what's going on with this Longshoreman Strike now that we're out of the debate? If you want our full coverage of the debate, go and watch our live stream.
For sure.
Live stream on YouTube. You see all of our full reactions. But now we're going to get on to actual news that probably matters.
And this one did matter. It was a big story this week.
Yeah.
It already resolved itself by the end of yesterday. But I think it does elucidate parts of our society and the way it works in critical ways that we should get into. Because I think if you can't understand this, if you don't really understand what's going on here, a lot of other things are not going to make sense. So here's this is the boss of the International Longshore Warehouse Union, or ILWU, that had a contract come up. Basically, their contract went into basically the end of the contract period with the docks all across the eastern seaboard that the ILWU is a union for. And when they did so, the businesses said, hey, we'll give you a 50% pay increase over the next 5 years. That's the offer. And they said, not good enough. Also, you're automating things you said you wouldn't automate. So,
can I make a point on how smart it is to have the contract end to a point where you can do this right before an American election? That is genius.
Oh, it does.
That's why that man wears the gold chain, in my opinion.
Highly political phenomena. And if you look at this just in the lens of economics, you're missing a huge part of the picture. You have to look at it from the political economy as much as the economy of it.
Or organized crime.
But you can get a sense.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you can get a sense of who this guy is
organized crime.
with this first clip, for sure.
These people today don't know what a strike is.
Right.
When my men hit the streets from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down.
He's got such mafia.
You know what's going to happen?
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this.
So COVID.
Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. And in today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
Look at this guy, Machiavelli. Eat your heart out.
Dude, it's crazy. Like I feel like I was watching like The Godfather or something. Like there's such mob boss energy right there.
Yeah, baby.
It's like, I bet you like this cabinet right here. It'd be a shame if something were to fall into it.
Yeah, it's like I got the president screaming at me. It's like, I'll cripple you.
I don't live next to docks. Does
Not
Jake
a lot of
Bennett
those out here.
Yeah, you know a little bit more about it from being from the Haba.
Yeah.
So what do you know about that? Are they all mafiosos?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, that was enlightening.
Good CIA asset, man, just doing his job. So this spread into
work for intelligence.
I didn't hang around the docks much.
So this was going to be this is 36 ports all over the eastern seaboard. Now it is interesting that he was saying that goods coming from China on the eastern seaboard. What the hell does that mean? You telling me is China's sending goods through the Panama Canal all the way around to there? That's
efficient.
More efficient than moving across rail line across the United States. Really?
I imagine it
It's
probably
just good
is.
rhetoric. I'm
Wow.
sure they're like the global trade system's all wacky anyway. So I'm sure there's other stops they do, or maybe they're coming from the other way and it's just a long trip for them. I don't
Right.
know.
Maybe drop off in Europe and then, I don't know. The other one is this kind of spread beyond just the politics of it and the news, things like that. It got into the social media as like a back and forth between various different people. And I think this one kind of elucidates some of that. We don't have to watch the whole thing, Kyle, but just kind of getting into the first bit here of people talking about it.
Shame on you, longshoremen and dock workers.
Shame on you, lady, for buying into the bullshit media that these multi-billion-dollar companies are putting out, trying to turn the American public against the longshoremen. You are the fucking problem. A contract is redone between the ILA and the companies every 6 years. The last contract, the companies agreed not to automate. And guess what? They did it the fuck anyway. The companies broke their contract. The longshoremen could have done this strike months ago when they found out about the illegal automation, but they decided not to. They decided to uphold their end of the contract. They decided to be the bigger people. And you're
Cut there. Yeah, so it's a lot of that kind of back and forth about what actually happened with the contract. Did they who broke what?
Well, I was gonna say I always like when people counter accuse buying a propaganda. Like, we could have done this months ago. We decided to wait for the worst fucking time to do it right before the election. And when I don't want to jump ahead, but when there's a natural disaster going on, we're going to do it now. Now you're going to do it, lady. This is the time. You could have done it 6 months ago, but you do it now. Sounds a little bullshitty to me. That's all.
You're full of shit today.
Yeah.
So the next one, the next clip is the back to the union boss guy. This is him talking about their accusation for automation. Now watch this. This is really interesting.
Over the weekend, the past
Secretary of Labor Julie Sue has been terrific. She's knocking down doors. She's trying to stop this. She's trying to get us to a media where we can have a fair negotiations. It's the companies that don't want to. They don't want to sit here and be fair. So that's why we're out here fighting for our livelihood.
What more from the automation do you want? What more protections could there be?
What more?
Yeah, they have language in there now.
Not strong enough, because what happens is they come in with new technology. We just caught them in Mobile, Alabama, called Autogate. That's right. And that means the trucks are coming in and they're already checked in somewhere else and not using the checkers in the ILA. Circumventing the contract. They don't care. They don't care. It's not fair. And if we don't put our foot down now, they would like to run over us, and we're not going to allow that.
You are going to grind the economy.
Yeah, so the auto checkers is just a process where you have like a QR code in the front of your ship or whatever, so that when it comes in, it detects that and says, oh, that's where you're from. And it automatically authenticates those goods in that ship with the global tracking systems that are in place, rather than have a person manually do it by hand.
I have one question that, just for clarify, because I was told this by a friend of mine we were talking about this, but are these companies like not American companies? They're like international companies. That's what I understand about it. That's what he said.
I imagine they're
Is that true?
conglomerates.
There's a little bit of they're like global companies,
Well,
really.
it's 36 different ports, so it has a range of different companies.
Right, but I think the people that like pay the longshoremen are not American based. I could be wrong about that, but it's the international union, right?
Yeah, it's probably. I could imagine that being true. I'm not actually sure.
It is an international union. Yeah,
right.
It's yeah. So this is just to protect jobs in this. Now the question is how much do they make, right? So if you look up longshoremen, it says somewhere between $20 and $40 an hour. But when you look at the filings from the companies who are contracting with them, they all put together in an association. I can't remember what the association's called. It's called the Pacific Maritime Association. They release an annual report about their total labor expenses as part of their union contract. In that report, it says the effective average wage rate for the union members is $64 an hour.
Well, I would say the question it's like data is always tricky. Like the median, like I would guess that's an exponential tail. So when you talk about averages, you have an exponential graph, that may not be great. So I don't know what that data actually looks like.
Keep going down. Oh yeah. Good. No, you got to unpack that story.
Are we going to paywall it?
Right. No. Right there. So that shows the distribution of, because you're doing everything from the checkers to the nighttime shoremen who get paid more. Obviously, it's based on experience, but you look at the curve of the graph, right? So some people make way less than that, especially part-time workers. They'll make $20 an hour, right? But then you got people on the other side of that. So the effective, on average, not including benefits, is $200K for a longshoreman.
What's a Class B longshoreman? What's the A and the B?
These are different qualifications for in the job.
That's what I always wonder. Like, well, what is does this represent the majority of dock workers that went on strike? I would guess it doesn't.
Well, but that's the thing. It's like,
is this high-end propo? That's what I'm asking. Is this a high-end propo where like, oh my God, all these people make all this money,
right?
But it's really not that many of them. It's like the university. Like I can say the university, of all the people at the University of Montana or Montana State, like 2% make over 100,000.
Yeah. So the vertical here shows the number of people at that wage rate, right? So the bulk of people are making over $100,000 a year.
No, I get that. What I'm asking is what's the population in total of all workers who are on strike? Because I don't know what that is. I know this
is everyone who's contracted with this union.
So Class B workers are not contracted with this union?
No. All three of these categories are.
That's what I mean.
So the foremans make $200,000 to $400,000.
If there's a Class A, isn't there a Class B? Like, what's the?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He's asking if this is actually representing everything because we have these certain categories.
So it's a subcategory. So I get that, but what's the larger population?
Are these all of the subcategories?
Yeah. Right.
Or is there something that's broader?
So the full-time,
the guy who's got paper clipboard who's checking in those ships, I doubt they're paying that guy $100,000.
But they're probably on the left side of that graph, right?
They probably aren't even in the graph. They're not class.
That's
a Class B job, in my opinion. Who's going to pay somebody Class A to check?
But
what a QR
Class A
code
also makes less than $20 an hour, potentially, in theory, given that graph. So what I read when I read the report, it was trying to it was encapsulating the whole thing. I thought I didn't check into.
Wait a minute, $0 an hour is almost 100 people. I don't like this graph already. I don't know what's going on with this.
I don't think that's zero. I think it's just zoomed out.
I don't know what's going on with this.
So 100K benefits cost per. So the other calculation.
That's the human trafficking.
That's negative zero. That's gonna make negative money.
That's the human trafficking.
Hey, that's the mafia payments you have to make.
So the overall cost, if you just take the entire expense out per employee, it's $100K. That's the overall cost per employee, not including benefits, not including health benefits, not including 401K match. And so this is based on annual reporting from the Association of the Maritime Producers. And on top of that, this is based upon their prior contract, which increased that last 6-year contract beforehand was also a 60% increase of the year prior. So they are beating inflation rate by that much on a 5-year period.
You know what the Montana State's rate is?
What's that?
1%.
Nice.
They should be striking right now. That would take everything would grind to a halt. The economy actually nothing would change. You guys don't even notice.
You wouldn't even
You would not notice if universities went on strike.
Yeah. Well, that's because you don't have a critical industry, and on top of that, the cartelness of it. I mean, that's I think one of the underlying things is what is the question of if a business had this much of a monopoly and tried to exercise this kind of economic power, it would be immediately categorized as a cartel. But we don't do that when it comes to union. Why?
What is this thing that you just sent me, Bennett?
That's the That's about the head of the union that you said had very strong mafia vibes.
Yeah, what is it? So, because Daggett's the head of the union, right?
Yeah, so he was accused of being...
Here, I'll read it out for the audience. The Justice Department has lost 2 cases against Daggett in which he was accused of being an associate of the Genovese crime family.
So you were right.
In testimony at a trial in 2005, George Barone, a former Genovese soldier who was a mafia enforcer before turning states of evidence,
like soldier in quotes, I love it.
Yeah, soldier, testified that Daggett was controlled by the mafia in his own testimony. Daggett depicted himself as a victim of the mafia and said that Barone had threatened to kill him in 1980. Daggett and the 2 confidants in the trial were found not liable in November 2005 on civil RICO charges of extortion, conspiracy, and fraud. One of the co-defendants, Lawrence Ricci, disappeared during the trial. His body was found weeks later in a New Jersey diner, decomposing with multiple gunshot wounds. The murder is still unsolved.
Totally normal stuff. Woo! I mean, the guy's got a gold chain on. I mean, does he really? He's not hiding things.
I love that. I love in the Wikipedia article, it's phrased as disputes with the government.
What's the quote? I will shut this thing down. I will shut you down. I will make you hurt. I will cripple you. Yeah.
So another assessment of this, the full-time dock workers, foremen, their leadership on a foreman team.
Yeah, like the
earned 24% more than the average CEO salary base in 2022. And 20% more than neurologists.
Well, neurologists. Actually, they're probably neurologists are good. If it said neuroscientists or psychologists, I'm like, oh my god, you definitely need to pay these dock workers more than those fucking.
The clerks you're talking about earn $5,600 per year less than airline pilots.
Airline pirates?
Pilots.
I think these guys are the pirates, the way things are looking here.
And full-time dock workers earn 21% more than lawyers and 9% above a dentist. So just now, that I'm not saying I know what the right wage rate is, but is it possible that using their cartel powers, they are leveraging this beyond reason?
Possible, obviously.
Yeah.
Is that what they're doing?
And that's the thing, is like there's this whole shame mechanism they use, like, well, you don't support the working man. It's like, these working men are making more than the most educated, most like highest class people in our society.
I feel like shame isn't the only mechanism they're using.
Well, I mean, in the sphere of the political dialogue. Yeah.
Yeah, the rhetoric, right?
Right.
Well, so are we still assessing, like, what do you think? Is this a Pyrrhic victory that they got? You know what I mean? By like this, yeah, you won, but this is going to go bad for you later.
This week, what happened is they signed a contract, and guess when the contract ends?
Right, election season next time.
January 15th next year.
Oh, it's a quick contract.
So this is what happened. Wall Street Journal reports that the White House privately and publicly pressed the large shipping lanes and cargo terminal operators to employ the longshore workers to make a new offer on the union. You know, what was the new offer? Let's just get through the election cycle, guys. Because we don't want to tank the Kamala presidency. That's not a conspiracy theory. It's in the open. It's in the Wall Street Journal. They say it right there. They just don't say this is in order to keep Kamala. Didn't they get a tank Kamala?
60% increase? Is that's
62%
for 90 days?
Well, that's the promise on paper. So they sign this, and they can either re-up in January. It's for 5 years. So it's saying we'll sign this one. We'll stay on that trajectory of 62%, which is right in the middle. Prior, the union asked for 77, and the companies offered a 50% pay increase over 5 years.
But, split the difference.
But my question is there a pay raise over this year agreement?
No.
Or is it just the same?
No, this is just saying over the next 5 years, this is the new deal we're going to cut. And then we will renegotiate and come back to the table in January to work out the final details. Because what they don't have is what they want on automation, which is basically saying you can do no technology whatsoever.
Well, I don't mind the government putting their hands on them, given other things going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Major hurricane.
Yeah.
And not to mention, if these aren't American companies, and you're going to hurt Americans, now you're a threat to me, right? If I'm actually going to pretend the government does real things, which I know is controversial.
I don't know.
You mean they exist?
I know I'm anathema right now.
I don't know about that. I wouldn't go that far.
This is just one cartel talking to the other cartel, like, "Hey, you're screwing up my business right now, buddy."
Well, yeah. But,
Well, that's the thing, right? Is this is all happening right during there's a major natural disaster happening where we have 191 people dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like if you were having this big issue right now and you're going to do what you do, like the election, that's just tactics. Good job.
Right.
But then the strategic error to me was doing this during this hurricane because people I feel this way. Like I feel like you're an idiot because what's going to happen now is you got your contract. But as far as automation goes, if I'm the U.S. government, I am creating so many grant programs to automate you guys into nothing. I don't care. I will send money to the Musks and the Bezos and whoever else. I don't really care to automate this problem because what I don't want is you to give me a shakedown when I don't want it, especially given what's going on. Like I said,
is that what you mean by the Pirates' victory? Is
pirate victory?
Pirate victory,
like it explodes.
Yeah,
it's an explosive.
So
I like pirate victory better.
Pirate victory. They definitely got a pirate victory.
They got the booty.
But I'm saying it's a pirate. Yes.
Yeah, but because
it's a chemical term.
They win big right away, but then there's a lot of bad voodoo.
You ever seen that? There was this time oh man, it was I was in college. I didn't get in the service ship. There was this president that stood on this big boat that said mission accomplished. and shit hit the fan. It's like one of those things.
That sounds right.
You know what I mean?
It's a mission accomplished.
Yeah, we dissolved the Ba'athist Party. Pirate victory. All right. Well, now they're all militant leaders. And they still live here.
Speaking of that president.
Will this... I think this was largely predicted as probably accelerating automation in the long run. And I totally agree. That's often the trade-off to these sorts of cartel activities. That said, it's very difficult when you bound them in contracts. And on top of that, keep in mind, the unions have the force of law behind them. The companies don't. The National Labor Relations Act of the 1930s governs this. So federal law actually binds what they can do because you can't break the union in this sense. It is illegal for them to try to recruit outside the union to replace their jobs when they're on strike.
But my question would be, since they're playing this game of dicey and we're in the time of legal, what do we want to call it? Flexibility. Given there's natural disaster, you can just declare a state of emergency, do whatever you want, right? That's what they do. So I even saw people saying DeSantis is the one that helped throw this thing. That could be a complete fabrication, but because everything's propaganda op now. But
see that? DeSantis what?
I saw reports that said, somebody saying DeSantis is the one that made this thing end. He kind of was giving pressure the other way. You better cut a deal in some way, which is probably why it's 60 instead of 70, right? There's other pressures going the other way.
Them.
Right, because he opened up the ports in Florida with National Guard. And so, we'll just slowly figure out how to make you irrelevant. What do you think about that? And again, these governors of these southern states who are really dealing with issues right now because of this Hurricane Helene or whatever, which is our next thing, I think. But because I'm Joe, I'm trying to keep us on task.
No, you're good.
No.
But that was what I saw.
Alluded to it.
Yeah. Right.
No, you're not wrong. I just asked Grok about it, and he pretty much.
I love Grok.
That was weird.
He is a he. He's gendered.
Wow.
Grok is a he. It's okay to have genders. It's okay.
Yeah. Wait,
ships are she.
For AI though?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If it's right, it's a dude. If it's wrong, it's probably a lady. ChatGPT is definitely a lady. You know what I mean?
I plead the fifth.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't track the DeSantis narrative there. Interesting. So, anyways, Kamala got bailed out by Biden this week. Huzzah. Because if it hadn't, I want to be clear about this. My theory here is if they hadn't, it would have been devastating to the Kamala campaign because it would have looked so bad, especially because the Kamala is actually behind on union support right now. Right. So
a lot of union support is going towards Trump, which is traditionally the union support has always been Democrat.
Isn't that kind of one of JD's thing of why he got brought on to the ticket?
Yeah.
Specifically for Teamsters and pipe fitters and folks like that. Yeah.
Well, it's remember the Teamsters spoke at the RNC, right? That never happens.
And what's the Teamster footprint in Appalachia that's currently?
Probably substantial. A lot of it's trucking and shipping and stuff like that. Yeah.
A lot of workers, a lot of whatever going on there.
Yeah. So, but going back to it, one of the reasons why it had to be done now for sure, Hurricane Helene. Don't worry, Biden is on the case.
Oh, thank God.
What do the states in the storm zone need, Mr. President? Sorry? What do the states in the storm zone, what do they need after what you saw today?
Oh, in the storm zone?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what storm you're talking about.
Which storm?
So many.
They're getting everything they need. And they're very happy across the board.
What are the states?
Okay, so the audio wasn't that great on that because of what was going on in the background. But
I have not seen that.
But he's asked about the storm. He's like, what storm?
It's like there's multiple ones. He's literally coming back from visiting the victims, like the people who are in crisis with Hurricane Helene.
This is where you're really glad he's Dementia Joe. You're like, like if you were still trying to be like not demented and you said some garbage like that.
I'm kind of retarded.
Yeah, because like the exact quote here is, what do the states in the storm zone need after what you saw today? Biden confused. Oh, the storm zone. I'm with what storm they're talking about.
Nice. Yeah. I get it.
But then it's actually what he said after.
Yeah, everything they have, they got everything they need.
Yeah,
so what
they're
I think,
happy across the board.
Right. What I think
that's crazy.
I think they gave him the theme, like we want this theme that everyone's getting what they need, and he just read the theme. Like, oh yeah, let me just read this. Like,
well, he probably talked to a
there's
governor.
Like, there's like towns that don't exist now. So you're like, how are they? Did you build a new town?
Well, they don't need anything anymore.
Well, that's true.
They're not there.
Your needs cease when you get erased from the earth. I get that, but like, you know.
But you shouldn't have been standing there.
This is a classic fallacy of democracy, right? He probably talked to an elite, a governor, someone like that, and then he's like, oh, well, and that person probably said, no, we're good. We got everything we need.
Is North Carolina's governor
just repeated it.
A friendly or an adversary to Biden? I think he's a friendly, if I had to guess. If I was rolling my dice, I bet he's he's got a big D, and I don't mean Dallas next to his name.
Isn't I believe it's Democrat now, right? I think the current North Carolina governor is Democrat.
So I'm sure he told them
Roy Cooper.
You're doing everything
because I remember seeing North Carolina governor being one of the people that was in the runnings as potential presidential candidates when Biden was out.
Democrat Party.
Democrat Party.
I remembered he was like one of. It was like him and somebody else were kind of the scuttlebutt of who was going to be selected before Kamala actually ended up getting it.
Emily, check scuttlebutt off your bingo card.
I know she loves that word.
This is a great word.
It's beautiful.
I saw someone, it might have been Josie, redheaded libertarian.
Mm-hmm.
She was responding to some photo, and it's like Biden in a helicopter maybe, and I was like, I kind of feel like this is his George Bush Katrina moment.
Right. So that's what I think is happening a lot, is people are definitely, that's what their goal is. Like, let's propo it up and make sure that this sticks to them like nothing else. And then on the other side, they're trying to defend against that, right? So then you get trash like this, and then you also get people like, the feds are like blocking the roads, no one's allowed in. Like, that's not happening either. Like, no, the feds are not putting roadblocks up. They probably are administratively making things hard. Like, they can do stuff with flights because it's all federally regulated, right? So like, I think when Biden came in, they shut down all airspace because, you know, security and whatnot that they do, which when SAR or search and rescue is going on, not exactly when you want to, like 4 hours that's 4 hours.
Yeah,
that's 4 hours of exposure of somebody out there that could have been found in 4 hours. Not saying that happened, but that's the risk you took when you did that, right?
Yeah, what is it, like drones can't be flown, helicopters can't fly in the space, all that sort of stuff?
Well, yeah, so that's a part of it. Like, so you can fly most drones under like 200 feet and nobody cares.
Okay.
Right. So like all those like hobby drones that we can get out, you can actually get pretty far. You can probably get a 2 mile drone. Like the big Reapers, no. Like the bigger like commercial ones that you see, like we got so many drone companies even in Montana now that fly like mid-sizers. I don't know, like this, I don't remember what the size is. Actually height, I think, is the like as you get an elevation is when you have to start following NOTAMs, which is a aircraft like regulatory thing that you have to follow.
Yeah, like I'm
like
not
that.
supposed to fly mine above like 120 meters, I think.
Without a piece of paper or something, right? Yeah. So it's like that.
Unless it's a Trump rally, and then it's totally cool.
You can't have drones at Trump rally.
No, you totally can.
That's what the first shooter did.
What?
So we do have a lot of conflicting reports from they got everything they need on the ground, including military vet and famous extrajudicial practitioner Tim Kennedy, and MMA fighter with his operation that he's been doing to alleviate folks on the ground.
Are they still not there anywhere? What are you seeing from FEMA in the federal response, if any?
I mean, they're present. They're in the way. They are directly interrupting our ability to conduct missions and operations. And I'm not going to disparage anybody because we are trying to work within partner relationships, both government and non-government entities within state and federal and county. I went to put a couple of people into a hotel last night, and they have a security guard at the hotel. And they said, "Oh, we're so sorry. The entire hotel has been booked for federal employees." And I was like, no, I have people that would just pull it out of a mountain that are living out in the hills, and there's not a place for me to put them because we have federal employees that are staying in the hotel. I slept in this white car last night. I smell like foot and death right now, as does every single person on our team. Not a single one of us slept. We got done maybe at 3 o'clock the moment the sun was up and we could fly helicopters again. We were back in the air and we have not stopped. And I was like on the fence about trying to get on this program or not. I want people to understand how incredible this organization is, Save Our Allies, and all the work that all of these volunteers are doing. But people, this is biblical level devastation.
This stuff drives me crazy. All right, soapbox time for Adam.
Do it.
All right, here's the issue. I love my fellow vets. I hate the grift. Right. And I love my NGOs, the disaster response people. I hate the grip because what turns out happening right away, and you heard it at the end, this has become about fundraising. So they go there to fundraise. See me in front of things, fundraising operations, right? Sleeping outside in a car for one day, that's standard stuff, right? You know what I mean? Like that should not shock you, right? That's crazy. So when people do that, it bothers the hell out of me because I know, now don't get me wrong, this is a necessary evil that they've all had to come up with, is this fundraising game that's happening. But the whole 501c3 nonprofit game in this country, right? A lot of times people end up building their own like churches, right? This is the good we're going to do, but part of that's all this funding. So they do all this propo stuff in front of the camera, do all this stuff. Again, I get it. I appreciate that they're out there, but there's always another thing. And as far as like this thing that's going on, like let me blame the federal workers. Again, like NGOs and the federal workers all have this money grab they're trying to grab. Like there's only so much money that's going to get donated out there, right? But I have to get my message out. What am I doing? Who are my people, right? How
do you get your piece
of
the
This is
pie?
what they do. And if I can end with a joke, this sounds like this guy misses the FEMA camps. Where are the FEMA camps? Because they're not around.
Yeah.
If they had FEMA camps, like they should have set up displaced people camps. That's what they're supposed to do. And that's pretty standard. I don't know where they are, right? All right, that was it.
I remember the Tea Party era when everyone was really worried about the FEMA camps. It was a real thing for a long time. I was really worried that we're going to just,
but now
for some reason, just stick everyone in a FEMA camp.
Well, because there was a bunch of documents that were declassified that was talking about setting up all this stuff, right?
Oh, yeah. I had to read them. I had to go through all of them.
Yeah,
because
I went through a bunch of them, too.
I was working for Congress, and I had to write the letters responding to people who are asking questions about the documents.
Yeah. Right.
And one of the things, a lot of them was the most concerning ones were Army instruction manuals about running psyops on Americans when they're in the camps in order to keep the people from in the camps from getting too unruly.
Oh yeah, it's
if they're displaced by a natural disaster, like that was or an invasion or whatever, like and that was where it got really creepy because it's like it's a creepy plane. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so like during like displaced person, like usually my context was in an overseas like war situation maybe or whatever, but it's still like the similar problems. You got a bunch of people who don't have a lot of resources that you shoved in one small area. So you got all kinds of issues with that. You got resource competition that can cause conflict. You have gender issues, separations. You have like religious things that you got to worry about. You got like different social structures of where you live. Like, I don't know what's going on in deep Appalachia. I'm not from there, so I'm sure maybe JD can enlighten us on all the little doofy. But like, you have to worry about this kind of stuff like that. So like, yeah, JD, what do you think, JD? But so it doesn't shock me that they come up with this influence, right? Information operations, like how to influence people to like chill out. I mean, if they could get away with it, they would probably drug them all, which you can't get away with. Usually.
Put it in the water, right?
Put it in the water.
That's it. Just to keep your teeth clean.
Send Diddy in.
Right. But I mean, the guy,
he's got hurricane relief bottles, specially marked bottles.
But I like this clip because it's a nice propo for two reasons. It shows this guy out there. He's talking about how awful the feds are. Yeah. But then at the same time, he's like, oh my God, look at
partners.
Look at how much sacrifice I'm doing. Right. And stuff like that, which again is a necessary evil of the game, but it's always going to be there for every organization.
There is an important point there. Is just like, and it's just kind of a lesson for people to understand propaganda and understand narratives that people form, even if they're for good things. Like a lot of times advertising is good. A lot of times advertising is bad, right? And that's all propaganda is oftentimes. It's just you're advertising something. And this is advertising for funding your projects, right?
Right. And to clarify, I don't think you're saying that it isn't bad on the ground and that the NGOs aren't trying to fix things. It's just that the incentives at play often create this kind of incentives for making things
dramatization
of the situation. I that's him doing his job.
I know words. I have the best words.
Also, if the federal government is failing to provide relief, like what you were saying with the helicopters and Katrina, why can't we do that now? Why doesn't that seem to be happening now? Well, it might be the geographical scale, could be all kinds of reasons why that's not happening. But it also could be that the government is fundamentally more broken now than it was even 30 years ago.
Well, that's part of it because all that build lessons learned from Katrina, like when they go into the planning cycle, if I had to put on that hat, like coming from the top down, like the first, sadly, again, it's election season. So what's the first thing they want to do? Not look like idiots.
Yeah.
Even though just doing that is probably going to end up you looking like an idiot. So everything's like a lot slower. So
bureaucratic.
I don't know how long it took Fort Bragg. I'm calling Fort Bragg. I'm not saying Fort Liberty. Screw you and everybody else. So
rebranding of a fort.
Out of Bragg, they renamed the thing because the guy fought for the wrong team or whatever, right? So like, but they finally assembled some things to go forward, right? But that took a lot longer than it normally would. Like overseas, actually, this happened a few times, like typhoons in Southeast Asia. Like the Navy will respond or Marines will respond that are around. They have 72 hours to respond before they need approval in a foreign country. Why can't that happen here? Good question, right? Again, I think a lot of it is optics and politics and more and the giant bureaucracy of it all, right?
Right. Crazy.
There's also, have there been any problems with like National Guard?
I was wondering that too. Because I was thinking
that was a narrative too.
Yeah, I was thinking of Defend the Guard with Liam because I remember that being a big thing with Katrina was a bunch of Louisiana's National Guard were out fighting overseas instead of being here to protect the country.
So yeah, I mean, I have a small story about that. I was deployed and I came back on R&R. She usually give you 2 weeks to come back home or whatever. And when I came home to a flood in North Dakota in 2009. This flood was a huge, like super disaster flood, right? Yeah. And so what was all the Guard deployed? No, they weren't all deployed, but all these surrounding guards in this region, they're built to defend against floods, but instead some of them were doing route clearance patrols in Iraq instead of, helping everybody out. So that was definitely true as far as like, okay, we don't have as much support, especially organically, to know this area that are from here. Your people, your National Guard are from your state, right? That matters a lot because
better knowledge of the area.
Because like this guy might not be from here, and so anybody coming in to an area like this who doesn't know it, their first issue is like, I don't know what's going on. I can't make sense of anything. I don't have like my eyes and ears. Like what is true, right? And so we had, and in our case, you had, I can't remember where they flew them in from, like some North Dakota, like they wasn't North Dakota Guard, but they flew in another Guard team and they gave them fan boats and they would cruise around the river. And so we actually ended up losing. We lost this. Our house got flooded, but we were on the river, right? So we have this huge dike that we built with sandbags and everything else. This is before. Basically what happened is the ice jams went on the rivers and then everything backed up and it was just game over, right? But these guys were flying up and down the river with these fan boats and the wakes would slam into all the dikes. And one of the guys calling the radio was like, if one of those guys comes anywhere near, I'm going to shoot him because it's a big deal. And this has happened in like April end of April or maybe beginning of April, but there was a blizzard that happened in the middle. So we're talking not great conditions. You're outside in a blizzard. The whole river's frozen, but it's still rising. It was very, very like crazy.
I remember that. It's funny because the area of Canada that I'm from is actually just north of that, so they got very much affected by it. And I remember driving through the flood zone in North Dakota,
and it was wild. And we had like just a sense making problem. We had a reporter came out, and I was like in the middle of like building sandbags or whatever, and the guy's like, "Hey, excuse me, can you tell me where the Red River is?" I'm like, bro, you're fucking standing in it, man. But that's just what happens when you get all these people who aren't from a place. They just don't know enough, and they spend the first X amount of hours just bumbling around that they just don't have that deep intuitive knowledge or whatever, right?
So I was able to confirm North Carolina and Tennessee National Guard units are deployed overseas, specifically in the Middle East.
Jesus fucking Christ.
So not the entirety of the Guard.
I know, but it's still,
that's firepower, that's machinery, that's trained personnel, that's planners, that's all the stuff you need to deal with something like this.
People that know the area. Like that's one of the biggest things, because like when you're looking at bureaucratic processes, you're just like looking at numbers. We just need more people. But there's also like, no, these people have the knowledge of the state. And,
knowledge
they're
of the
trained there. They're all that stuff. And that's another variable that it adds to the mix.
Well,
of
the
efficiency.
authority. So that's called the incident command system in America, right? So you have like if a traffic accident happens right on this road out here, the cop there, he's going to become the incident commander, and that just scales up, right? So the guard is like the last like support that comes in, but they also have the authority, right? So what's happening now is a shitload of disaster tourism, right? So there's a lot of people going there, right? And there's a lot of people going there just to, it's more for themselves than for the people there.
What do you mean? Like hotels are cheap? Or what do you mean disaster tourism?
Like they're going there and they might be a part of an organization. They want to be seen on ground helping.
Okay.
Right? To get materials.
They got to take their selfies for the
photo, again, it's like
it really lights up the Instagram. You're like, I'm helping. You got like a sandbag at Home Depot.
Sure, there's some of that. So what?
My buddies actually have a term for this. We call it clicktivism.
Clicktivism. I like
it. It's like you're literally just doing it to show that you're doing it.
Sure. And so when you get all these people in, what you also get is chaos, right? So like, where are the airports around here that people are probably flying into? Charlotte, maybe. They might be flying into Knoxville. But they get all these people, all this aid, and no one there to organize it. That's what that guard element is kind of, I mean, they're not great at it, but like they're better than nothing. It's better that they be there than in Iraq, let's put it that way, or wherever the hell they go.
Sure. Well, and that's a major part of the narrative that happened from this. And that itself is a major signal. I mean, Hurricane Katrina happened. It wasn't really till months afterwards we really started to recognize how devastating it was to not have the National Guard available. This time, it was this week in the middle of it. People are saying, we got billions of dollars for Ukraine and Israel, but $750 per person for the storm victims.
Right.
Skipping ahead a little bit onto
which is more than Maui.
Yeah, exactly. So what that is references actually is the FEMA's Other Needs Assistance ONA program, which is pretty much $750 you can get if you're in this situation for covering immediate needs. There are others, so it's a little bit unfair of a comparison in a sense. But when you zoom out and you look at the actual congressional budget numbers for this, Congress already passed $15 billion in federal aid specifically for Helene. I want to say Helena, but it's Helene.
I almost do it too.
Yeah. Which includes $10 billion for FEMA to provide disaster relief and emergency assistance, and an additional $5 billion for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Right. So the government did act on that, but think about $15 billion versus $113 billion.
$113 billion for which one?
For Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
175 in indirect.
What's going on is pretty much treasonous. I really can't say it any other way. Like,
go f yourself.
Exactly. Like, it's incredible the amount of, what do you want to call it? Like, I guess disdain that seems like they have for this area versus other places in the world. Like, they care more about what's happening in Donbass, what's going on in Appalachia right now, by their actions. And so hopefully that fixes. But for now, it would, again, you almost want to triumph for treason. It's that bad.
What's understandable, the outrage. I mean, it's just, you just look at the numbers, you say, we got $110 billion potential damages. Now, some of that's going to be covered by insurance, existing capital. It's already there that can be deployed to rebuild homes and stuff like that in the long run. But the federal government saying, I'm going to give you 1/10 that amount for actual coordinating assistance to save lives on the ground.
After you fill the form out correctly. Ukraine. You better fill that form out first.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you have these governors like signing missiles for Ukraine and everything like that, and it's like should just have them signing the tombstones for all the people that.
Whoa, shit!
I mean,
it's the visualization of it. It's the mimetic part of it. Absolutely.
It's very hard because I think all internet lenses on this, my lens, like we all coming from outside in, so it's very difficult to understand what's going on. I mean, you can get people on the ground like. There's a church not far from Asheville, like right there. And his report, I'll summarize. I posted in Discord for those Discorders out there about these couple tweets that this priest finally got. So everybody who's Protestant, just tone it down for a second. Like you assume there's trustworthiness here, right? I'll give you guys, I'll throw you a bone. But basically he's saying like, listen, like we just got power back. The city's talking about cutting the water off. Like that's already two things that are an issue. They haven't had power for till this morning or last night, and then they're still talking about cutting water off. So clean water of this, that's a big deal, right? Not having clean water. I mean, we're talking about, they're still in like 70s and 80s down there. So if they go grab swamp water, they're probably going to have a little bit of dysentery, and you don't want to Oregon Trail it, right? Like you got that. It's just these compounding effects that kind of happen.
Access to antibiotics, things like that.
And one thing he said is like, actually, what we like, manpower is not the problem, but the problem is supplies. And he lists a whole bunch of supplies that they don't have. So again, when you listen to Biden say they have everything they need and they're happy, like, okay, Dementia Joe, that's funny, but then when you contrast it with reality, it's like, dude, there's missing people, there are missing towns out there. Like it's hard to get there. I-40 is completely destroyed. Like I don't know how they're even getting in there. So that corridor between Knoxville and Asheville is almost just completely decimated. Right.
Well, I think the number, at least the number that we have here in the notes, is 323 missing, and that's on top of the 191 people dead.
Right.
That was best estimates as of last night.
Yeah.
So
it's probably changed.
Yeah, right. And not only that, just limited intel. We don't know. Right.
Limited intel. Yeah. Right. And then the propo's on top. Everything's going perfectly.
Right.
This is the greatest disaster. This is Katrina for them. Like you get both sides of it. Right. And the truth isn't even in the middle of that. It's everywhere around that. It's the substrate they're pulling those propos out of. Right. So it's tough to do it.
Remember when Trump offered to nuke the hurricane?
I think that was like
we bring that every time.
Remember those days?
Remember
those days?
Wasn't America great back then?
Would that work?
America was so great back then.
Would that work?
Look here, why can't we just nuke it? All I'm saying, it was just.
I feel like that had to have been a joke. I just remember it being funny.
It just would be really
at the time.
So, what are the other what are the other narratives to pull out of this? Well, of course, the left jumped on this. Al Gore tweets the devastation left by Hurricane Helene, including in my home state of Tennessee, is a staggering and horrific reminder of the ways that climate change can turbocharge extreme weather. Until we take serious action to solve this crisis, we will continue to see this climate chaos.
Climate chaos. I mean, the rhetoric game they have is really good, right?
Well, he posts to Yale Climate Connections.
Yeah, surprise.
Yeah, so it's. I mean, come on, it's Yale.
They got a grant.
This is
JD.
Jabroni's this place, right?
JD's stuff.
Place.
4 ways climate change likely made Hurricane Helene worse.
Likely. Doing a lot of work there. So I saw.
Okay, Adam, this is a great experiment. I'm going to read the summary paragraph of what the findings are here, and you tell me what's wrong with it.
Okay.
It thus appears reasonable to theorize that increased sea surface temperatures of about 1 degree Celsius since 1910 in the Gulf of Mexico from human-caused global warming led to about a 40 to 50% increase in Helene's destructive power.
We made math that has axioms that really is going to point this to where we want, is basically what I'm hearing. I mean, I can't remember who it was, and it could be fake. I don't know what you guys do with your ninja computers here, but there was a sign that had that the 1916 flood that was flooded, like the same, like this had happened before. This is not a new phenomenon for Appalachia. So I don't know how that goes into that narrative. I mean, it probably doesn't. So that's the issue, right?
Just think of the key words there. It appears reasonable.
Yeah,
to theorize.
Yeah.
To at some later point do actual things. That's what theory. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To create a hypothesis.
In order for this to be less likely to happen, you should probably give a bunch of funding out. You should probably put it towards these projects.
Exactly.
Yeah, I filtered the data through this math model, or not even math, probably like this framework, and I got this on the other side, which is reasonable because we're from Yale.
Well, okay, so
here's the graph.
The real science sitting behind this,
the important people at Yale say so.
Warmer water means more energy for hurricanes to be more powerful. That's like the first axiom that you're mentioning.
Right, the reduction of everything into water temperature.
Yeah, water temperature.
Because we can measure that. So that's exactly. Why we can.
It's the lamplighter phenomena, right? The lamp shines on the thing. That's what you see.
I'm glad that made its way in.
That's classic of political philosophy. I could have told you that, but yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So there's no trend line that exists. Well, there are trend lines that say that the water is getting warmer, but there is no trend line that exists that hurricanes are becoming more powerful over that period of time. Unless you only look at the last decade, in which case there's a slight uptick in the last decade, but the trend line starts way before then. So the question is why is it suddenly changing now, other than the political narrative?
Yeah, I'd be curious.
They made their weather control more powerful.
Yeah, right. Which is just classic, right? So the guess would be
how well could they measure speed in 1980?
Well, I mean, you could definitely measure amount of water output because we were measuring that. We were measuring
Yeah, but all of our systems are way
Because they
better.
intensify in the ocean.
That's one of the debates, right? Is
Yeah.
it better measurement that's actually showing it to be more intense now or not? Like, what does that mean? So these are all the complications here. Is they do all this hand waving suggestions based upon a conclusion they had already come to about this phenomena, and then when you look at the actual question of is your prediction actually coming true? There's so much complication to it. You can't make a determination. It's just too noisy. And then lastly, there you have the climate deaths related, right? How many people now die from climate deaths, and how many people died back in the day? And when you look at that graph, it's pretty clear. It goes the other way.
It's pretty clear that, is it less?
Yeah. Click on the
Even
button.
if it was more, I would say people are more fragile now.
I have the link up next there, Kyle.
When you rely on the system as much as we all do, and it goes away.
Next link?
No. In the notes next on climate deaths, or unless I misnoted it.
Uh-oh.
Sorry. Yeah, I just missed that link.
Yeah, it's
the Bjorn
Lomborg's.
Lomborg stuff. Yeah.
Shows climate-related deaths, which is always really the question, right? And you were talking about 1913. So there's bumps and dives.
This is all sanitation, in my opinion, is why this is lower, personally.
But it's also, it is also better water delivery systems, electricity. I mean, we're getting electricity from 1920 and 1960, right? And across poor areas in America.
Couldn't it be that we're better at dealing with it, but the problem's also getting worse? Couldn't it also be that?
Could be all kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, but that's the optimistic take, right? Is that we use technology to overcome the challenges that are produced by technology. Technology creates more carbons in the atmosphere, which heats up the planet. But then we're also able to overcome that using that same technology.
I was going to go the other way, where like you get reliant on the technology, and then in this environment, you have no internet, no power, that in itself is going to cause deaths. That's 100% going to happen. So the reliance of people on technology in the later stages now, like you have more, especially when it comes to like the money, like damage from, like if they wanted to prove their case, they would say, here's the damages in totals dollars with the last hurricane. Look how it goes way up. And why is that? Well, one, it's inflation. One, it's like, you know what I mean? So you got all these things that kind of skew that data point for you. Right?
And it's not a perfect set. It doesn't prove it. It doesn't spike the ball. But what it does suggest is that
we're talking about this Facebook. That's a great source.
It's X. But
it says Facebook.
Is it off Facebook?
It's off Bjorn Lomborg's Facebook.
He merged them.
He can't do that.
Bjorn, you sound Norwegian, so he's one of mine, but still.
Yeah. It's still a question of what is the deal? What is the phenomenon we're actually dealing with? Now, it doesn't appear that more reliance on technology has produced more climate deaths and disaster situations. It appears that's actually gone down. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that, that might not be a situation that couldn't happen now, right? Especially given, for example, Starlink is now free in all these affected areas.
But I would say
that's that technology being used to then leverage, right? So if you're like, I don't know if I can pay for it, and you get access to a Starlink, now you can communicate when you otherwise couldn't.
But the danger with Propos is how is the data collected? So did this guy walk around and count bodies on all these? No, that's not what happened. So how was it estimated? I know they got it from International Disaster Database. Well, let me go ahead and guess for 5 minutes that they are publicly funded. Let me also guess for 5 minutes that they write grants. And so what I got to do is I got to get data my way. Right. So they're going to come up with data. Now, this could be perfectly adequate. I'm not saying it's not.
Sure.
But I'm just saying this is the issue about graphs in general when they get presented in a narrative. It's like, well, how did you collect the data? Because they usually might say more. It's like Whittigan's ruler, one of these philosophy things. You're the philosophy guy. Yeah. But it says more about your measurement tool than what's being measured sometimes. Yep. And is this one of those? I don't know.
Yeah. You don't know just going to, other than Bjorn Lomborg's a pretty reliable guy. I mean, he's a pretty straight up guy. All that said, he has his own narrative. So he's trying to tell a narrative that says, hey, technology and people's ability to deal with problems is a good thing, and we shouldn't end global civilization in order to solve climate change.
I don't think wildfires should be considered climate-related deaths. That's just something that happens.
No,
but that's what they measure. They measure wildfire deaths in terms of why we need to deal with climate change. So therefore, you have to use their measure, right? If you're going to try to fight their narrative.
It's also things like on the
because of more people used to die from wildfires, and wildfires are being driven by climate change, according to the climate change people.
Yeah, I mean lightning.
Right.
It's also
climate change. We wouldn't have lightning,
Well, I mean, speaking of local example, attributing things, just popped my head.
Yeah.
Like the lightning strike that burned the M out here in Bozeman. It's a lightning strike. How did they come up with that? Right? How was it not just an MSU campus person who flicked a cigarette in the ground that happened to be 3 feet from the trail, by the way, is where this fire started. So they went to the lightning strike map, and they saw that there was a lightning strike according to their map near there. And so they decided it struck a log, sat there for 3 days and then exploded out of the log and burned all the M. That's the official story, which is a bunch of bullshit. I'm sorry. That is not how.
When you put it that way, it does sound kind of BS.
It sounds like somebody flicked a marijuana joint going on because this was during COVID.
Or tobacco. We don't know.
This was COVID time.
It could have been crack. You could have been just out there just lighting up some.
Could have been Hunter Biden. Who knows?
They were at the time. There was a huge thing like, no, don't bring the students back because of COVID,
right?
Because they're going to screw up the town. And then this fire happens. To me, that's proper ops the other way. Like, nope, we got to make sure this is lightning. Let's get our scientists on it. And again, they use this Doppler radar of lightning strikes, and they get like, so again, like when you count the data, like how are you doing that?
It's also sort of like I'm looking at just some of the charts in the Al Gore link that he gave, and you're just like I need to see more than just going back to 1980. It's sort of like what you were saying is like something on record back in like 1920 something or whatever. You're just like, this could just be like a mild decade, and then you're comparing the next decade, which was not a mild decade. Like I would like to see longer stretched out.
And that's also a criticism
too,
of the deaths graph, right? Because that's averaged over a decade, right? And then you have a limited data set when you're looking at especially climate.
Yes, if we do that little gap, what happened that gap year? What's going on there?
Yeah, like there's 1 year where there's just nothing, right?
What's going on with that?
Yeah, climate change that year, man. It went on pause.
But if I just did the last 5 years,
okay,
that's when Obama was elected.
Right.
that looks like 2008ish.
Right? But if I time slice the last 5 years, it's going down, baby.
Yeah, right.
We're winning. We're winning. We're the champions.
That's because Obama was elected.
That's Trump era.
But then Trump came back and
that's Biden era. That's Biden era.
Wasn't there something in like the 70s where they were worried about it getting like too cool?
Global cooling was the narrative.
Yeah. So
that's how you got funded back in the 70s.
Like it was global cooling, then it was global warming. Now it's just climate change.
Because if you look at the longer term graph, and Joe mentioned this last week, if you look at the long term graph, since pretty much the death of the dinosaurs, we've been on an overall cooling trend. Right, so they were worried about a cooling trend much larger than what we're currently on. That was before. What's that?
You mean after the ice age?
That we were due for another ice age, because we have a medieval warming period. We go through these
ice age cycles.
And we would go through another one, which is another mini cycle to the overall larger cycle.
How do they get that data?
Oh, tree rings and
ice geology, soil sediment, things like that. That's the.
It's all. It
seems like voodoo.
He's like, the Earth is obviously 6,000 years old. That's bullshit.
I think some of
those aren't dinosaurs. Those are demons.
Some of the most
dragon bones.
Dragon bones.
Some of the most convincing, I think, ideas around that is probably geologists. And watching like flooding patterns and how it cut through rock and stuff like that, sort of like Lake Missoula type of stuff here in Montana, where a lot of Montana was just big lake
and previous before that glaciers, right? So when you're looking at that time scale, they were worried about that. They hadn't really concluded the strength of greenhouse gases as a trajectory changer, but that also works in the other direction. If we get back to the medieval warming period, you can now grow grapes in England again. That's good for England in theory.
That's why Montana's the winner of climate change. I say bring it on.
I say bring it on. Well, we'll be doing great up here.
And prices are pretty bad up here already, so maybe we should tone that shit down.
I don't think I've ever talked about this on the podcast before, but when I was working in public advocacy, they released this report from the University of Montana that said global warming is going to be disastrous for Montana for all these reasons, and it did this huge figure for all the total costs and all that kind of stuff. I dug into the report and looked at it. The same report that predicted more rainfall, more clouds, and like cooler temperature or warmer temperatures across Montana. So it's like, that sounds like we'll have longer agricultural seasons, more productive crops, a forest that is more fire resistant because it's going to be wetter. It's going to be more like the Pacific Northwest than the mountain dry climate. How is that going to produce more wildfires? It wasn't even in the report. They just stuck it in there.
Oh, there's a reason for that, but I was wondering if that was before or after cloud seeding that they do here.
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
Is that because that'll get more rain if you make it rain?
Yeah,
literally.
In theory. It might have other.
I think their argument for that is the brush grows underneath and then doesn't get cleared out, so there's like more brush to go on fire. I heard this explained to me once.
I remember we had when you guys had Kat on. This is kind of like when I started at the podcast. Mm-hmm. One of her things was because of I don't know what organization, but there's like laws about clearing that shit out now, and it's like preventing you from doing it, which makes wildfires harder because there's more shit to burn.
Right. But not doing control burns. But that's kind of like a status quo bias thing. Over 300 years, the ecology will change substantially if you get wetter and wetter over that period of time, and you might get more fire-resistant agriculture land. In theory, The OWN report suggested that, but of course, all the headlines were, "Here's the billions of dollars we're going to have to spend from the government in order to fight climate change in Montana."
The tribes are fairly nomadic here, but they still did ritual burns. Right.
Yeah.
Part of their spiritual practices, if you will. But still, they did that, and that served to that kind of function. And then we stopped doing that, right?
Yeah.
And then it didn't go well for us.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that, actually. That's interesting that they had their own practices.
It's like its own Chesterton's fence. Like, oh, we shouldn't burn the forest. Like, I bet you wish you did.
Yeah. One other narrative out of this was price gouging. And
every single time. Every time
there's always the same story. And we have this very viral clip that came out that I think demonstrates the people's reaction, kind of emotional reaction to price gouging.
Get them.
I know. One more time. How much a gallon? That's all I want to hear. Why is he taking a video? How much is it a gallon? You work here? He's taking a video. How much is it a gallon? That's all we want to know.
Doesn't sound like a native Appalachian. Just throwing that out there. Sounds a little less native.
You're filling gas, right? How much a gallon?
Narrative here,
$10. $10 a gallon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Video me, okay?
That's
over $1,300,000,000 $1,300,000,000,000.
Then they put on blast. Yeah, see, all these gas stations, they just got greedier at this time, right?
Yeah, they're just greedier.
It's unfortunate.
That's the only reason
they're
did
just
that.
greedier now.
Yeah.
There's nothing else going on. There's no economic factors that exist there. It's just they're greedy.
And of course, a lot of people did rely on and that's 2.3 million views. That's they then exposed them. They got a lot of threats. The business closed down.
Where was this?
This
India.
I was gonna say, Haiti. Is this in Haiti? Why? Why is a bunch of what is that CPA app or whatever? The JD, what was it?
Oh, TikTok. Yeah, Elon had something about that app on his tweet this week.
Yeah, it's like, but again, that's
CPB app. Yeah,
it's in Augusta, Georgia.
I see what you're saying.
No, that can't be right, is it? Yeah, it was.
Yeah, Augusta, Georgia.
Augusta, Georgia.
Yeah.
Was it affected that badly?
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I know everybody there lost a lot of power.
But it is illegal. And if you look at the tweet, guys, it's like, this is wildly illegal, right? That's what the head is.
Wildly.
And if you look at it, it's the real challenge here is it's difficult for people to get out of the kind of understandable heuristic of higher price means less people get access to good. That being bad in an emergency. I totally understand why that's like a very unintuitive. It's a quick, easy, intuitive moral judgment. The question is do these laws actually benefit our ability to get goods where they need to go in disasters? And that's the thing that's just so hard to penetrate the general public in helping them understand. What is the purpose and function of prices? Where does it come from? Yeah, this is that same gas station now closed. Yeah, and they're celebrating. They're like,
that guy looks like a native Appalachian right there.
It's like, now nobody can get gas. That's crazy.
Augusta, Georgia, isn't that where the Masters is? Don't they got like other resources there? So, that would be my count. Like, let me be a leftist for 4 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, well, okay, so there's $10 a gallon, so only the Gulf community can buy gas. You know what I mean? Like, that's not true here. I get where that's a straw man, but what I'm saying is, where is the place for, okay, only the most wealthy can get the supplies they need? I know it regulates, and the other part of it is, let me go the other way, let me put on my right-wing hat, like, well, this gas station is probably not going to get a lot of gas pretty soon. And so this is their, like, they have to protect themselves. Like, I'm getting short on gas. I might not get any for weeks. This is a huge money thing, so I need to raise the price so I can carry myself.
Well, that's the big thing, right? Is it's the shortage aspect. Like every time there's a disaster like this, there's always tweets where it's like, oh my God, they're selling cases of water bottles for $15 instead of the normal price. But it's just like everybody's flooding to them at that moment. Or it's like toilet paper. Toilet paper will skyrocket in price because of a disaster. Because everybody, there was just what was the thing that just happened in Montana? There was something where a bunch of people were rushing for toilet paper recently.
I think though, my guess is that had to do with the
Longshoreman.
Was it because of that?
Which
yeah.
Also,
that's right.
You could say, that had an effect on them getting gas. I don't know where their gas is coming from.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right.
It's just like, this was a few days ago?
At least a part of that is the savings rate of the lower income families and in the United States is very low. And that's really bad for natural disasters. Why is it low?
Because they make it low. You make it low.
Several
you better invest in the system.
decades of very low interest rates have had their effects on incentivizing people to make sure to leverage consumer debt rather than have savings, which is the traditional way that most people navigate emergencies. We can't do that anymore because why? Well, we created an incentive for almost 3 generations of saying, no, don't do that. So people don't. And now we're in a situation where, poor people are going to have a harder time during emergencies because the government set up a set of incentives to never have savings.
Well, there's so much credit too.
Yeah, or leverage credit. So you're
bomb.
saying they can't afford $10 gas. Well, that's a great time to either draw on your savings or your credit to do so. Now you say, I don't have any credit, I have bad credit or whatever. Well, then part of your problem is that the government has said, no, you don't get to have a savings rate because your savings are unproductive and they're going to be beat up by inflation. Exactly. And then the other side of that, I do think that I understand the left wing, the right wing argument here too, saying, well, this isn't charitable to the community. In this moment, you should be charitable with your resources. You're a gas station. These are everyday people. You should be charitable. That's also, it's a communitarian kind of approach to the question. Sure. The problem is what that does is it doesn't recognize the social benefit of the price mechanism in economizing to make sure that that people who need the gas the most are able to get access to it. And that's not just the wealthy, that's everyone else across the social spectrum who can either draw from savings or draw from a credit card or, have the appropriate incentive to say, I really need $10 gas. I'm not gonna fill up just because I don't need it. I'm gonna fill up only when I absolutely do.
Hey Kyle, can you get pencil stash off the computer?
Yes. Well, you don't like it?
No.
Ugh.
He's doing his thing. But it's so weird to me that because Augusta, Georgia, I mean, if you pulled up a map, I think Augusta, Georgia's in the northwest or east corner. So it's like opposite. It's not like it's in the mountains of, or maybe it is. I don't think so.
I'm not sure. I think it's like pretty close to the South Carolina border.
Exactly, like by the coast, right? So it's like not exactly
like,
in the hit zone.
Coastal, but it's like more towards the coast.
But I mean, if you were driving age during 9/11, which maybe you guys were not, this happened everywhere.
I was. Yep.
This happened everywhere.
Yep.
I got told
I was 6.
You missed a good time.
Is JD Vance your dad?
Yeah. Where were you?
JD Vance is our age, so therefore,
JD.
Yeah, it'd be a.
This was before his current wife, I would guess.
JD Vance's love child. Yeah. So the
you look like one of those video people if you were their current offspring, I would guess.
So price fluctuations happen. What happens is when there's an emergency declared, if you increase prices by an arbitrary amount, you can do this. Now, here's a great story. During Katrina, a guy from Mississippi bought a bunch of generators, put them in a U-Haul van, drove them to a rural spot that was out of power in Katrina, and sold those generators. Tried to. The police stopped him and arrested him for trying to do so. He had to give them away from free or he couldn't do it at all. Now, they said it was because the price was too high and he was taking advantage of these people when he was providing them power faster than FEMA did. But he did it for a price because he's just a regular dude. He marked them up 100%. You say, well, that's too much. But the question is what about the gas to get there?
Right.
What about the
his
U-Haul?
labor is what you mean, right?
not to mention that his time away from work, which he stopped to go do this to help people. And then second to that, his he's not Walmart. He's not moving 1,000 generators. He packed a U-Haul full of 30 generators. So his margin has to be higher because he's not making it up on volume. So how does he make, he's just operating by, I think, a reasonable incentive to help people and to be helped in exchange for his time.
Well, and I believe gas stations, the business model is that they try to keep the price of gas extremely low and they don't really get much profit margin on gas. And it's much more about the convenience store aspect, which is how most gas stations actually make the bulk of their money.
Yes.
Too. So it's one of these things where them jacking up the gas there is their business goes completely defunct if they run out of gas entirely. Right?
I guess how do you know what's arbitrary, right? That's a fun word.
Let's get Ms. Zessian about it.
How are we going to determine that? And where do you draw the line? Because definitely there's garbage people out there who are opportunity, right?
Sure. But it's not the benevolence of the butcher, right? That you get your meat on your table, right? It's not them doing you a favor. It's the fact that they want to make a buck too, and that's okay. That's not a bad thing. Now, they might be motivated by unvirtuous things.
Unless they're this is where I bring in the longshoreman back, Mr. Goldchain. If you know you can do it and you do it, Like, are you not accountable for that?
The question is he doing it by the means of persuasion and his own entrepreneurship versus using the government National Relations Act to coerce people into the situation and establishing a cartel, which is illegal in every other sense, right? Except for in this sense. We make cartels for labor illegal, cartels for everything else illegal. Well, so those are the injustices there. Not is he doing it to benefit? Is it virtuous for him to try to benefit his employees, his members of the union?
Well,
sure.
There might be an argument here with the gas station if $10 was maybe too high for the current market conditions, and it should have maybe been something more like $8. Like, I don't know what the price of gas was.
What do you say? How do you figure that out? Right.
But but this is part of the price discovery mechanism right here. And it turns out 10 was probably too high.
Gotta bring
That's a way to think about it. But it's also that this is an emergency. You should lose money.
We need a central planner to tell us what the prices are. Otherwise, this thing doesn't happen.
No, I don't see why that's not a thing.
And exactly. We might actually be exposed to the actual price of gas during emergency situations, and that's what people are rejecting.
Well, there's the other aspect of things where now you have like all this, like a lot of supplies are coming in by just people now, especially in the hard hit, like this area side. Like they're not going to get their supplies at the store. Like you might get some, but pretty much everything's getting trucked in by government or NGOs now. So that happens too. But then what you have, and this happened in Puerto Rico, like during, what was it? They had 2 Cat 5s, say like almost in a row, like this is 2017, right? So they had learned way later, because they forgot about them. They had like connexes full of like supplies that just sat out there. So you lose track of all this, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you lose track. And this is another problem that happens on these areas. Like when you get so many logistics in, it's very confusing. Not to mention, I'll just go say it. Us as a people, we'll sometimes like, oh, it's an opportunity to donate, but I'll donate stuff that's useless to them. Like it's a good way to clean my garage out. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, oh, I got all these extra clothes. They could use extra clothes. So then you get like connexes full of like rotten garbage clothes or sometimes like you'll get on it, like they'll be full of fruit, but nobody really was there to like process it and actually figure out what's going on. There's just this giant rotten waste, and now you've just created a problem. So like when I get mad at some of these, not him, I'm not saying he's a disaster tourist, the last guy, but some of the guys that do that, like if you're coming there and you're going to be a resource suck instead of value added, you're better off not going. You're better off not going, which is why usually people ask for money, because it's the easiest way to like parse that.
Right. That makes sense. And I'm sympathetic to anybody who wants to help and then goes and does stuff, but you can definitely make things worse if you're not careful.
Make things worse.
That totally makes sense.
Totally make things worse.
All right.
Well, maybe we should talk about more important news, and that's the disasters happening everywhere else.
That's where we invest.
Well, hold on, real quick. I am looking
investments.
up Augusta specifically for the hurricane. It seems like they got hit.
They got hit decently?
Not like Asheville or anything.
Right, not
but
Asheville.
Like they got hit.
Because I have family in Aiken, and they didn't have power, and that's even more east than Augusta, I think.
Oh, so this Georgia thing is reacting to a different hurricane.
No, same one.
What you're saying?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's just that it's in the, like, there's the real bad zone, and there's the kind of bad zone.
Augusta is where the gas station thing is, so we were questioning how bad they actually.
Well, and that's it. The thing is it's not up for us to judge how bad they had it and whether or not this is a thing. It's really, I mean, to me.
Well, they lost power, so they need gas for generators, right? That makes sense.
It's people leveraging several things. Yeah, it's people leveraging several things to try to basically, one, get clicks, and then two, using a very simple heuristic that doesn't look beyond, that doesn't see anything other than just the broken window and that fallacy, right? There's just more to it than just the number that you see on that and whether or not that is good for the right people. There's something larger going on, and that's what the price mechanism is.
So, Kyle.
Anyways.
Yeah, JD.
I'm talking to the internet. It drives me crazy. Let's talk about something else happening on the internet. Drive me crazy. Ian Childs Mong is a fucking idiot. All right. I got it out. I said it.
I don't even think you said his name right.
I think he combined.
You called him
He's
Child.
Miles Chong.
You switched the CH
Chong
and put it for
Childs.
I think he said Ian Childs Mong.
That's exactly what he said.
I'm dyslexic, okay?
Does it have op at the end because he is an op, obviously?
Yes,
but like,
obviously.
Is that what you guys put on there, or
yeah.
he put on that?
Oh no, that's
original
from an
poster.
add-on I have. It's a crypto thing.
Oh, I thought you guys were like, this guy's an op.
But maybe the add-on's telling me he's an op. Maybe,
I think so.
Maybe that's what it is.
That's good symbolism.
No, because he tweeted out talking about Iran. a lot of the dynamics here is because of Wahhabism.
Well, go up. Actually, we'll get to the original post here. So he basically calls out Dave Smith, right, for being an idiot because Dave Smith is questioning whether or not Iran is trying to assassinate Trump.
I'll read the tweet here.
Yeah.
Iran can publicly come out and say death to America and direct attacks on American personnel, and comic Dave Smith will claim they have never hurt a single American and that it was all done by the deep state. Very stupid person. And then there's a tweet commenting on it is, Iran is bad. We know this. You have to understand why they dislike America. Arabs used to love us. And then he says, because of Wahhabism, this isn't complicated.
So, Adam, doesn't Wahhabism just explain America's relationship to Iran perfectly?
Yeah, the brown people.
Well,
brown people in the sand are Wahhabis.
I just say like vocabulary words that I know about.
Yeah, Wahhabi.
Yeah. well, and I want to
you know what that is?
Let's
it means Persian person that I don't like.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly it. Is Liam
invented by Egyptians?
Liam tweets out underneath it, Iran is a Persian country, not an Arab country, and it's not Wahhabist either. It's a Shiite country.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, the U.S.'s ally, is an Arab and a Wahhabist country, right?
It's just,
it's just like basic understanding of the region and who's who, who's which faction.
Yeah, right.
And you're just like, you're not using the correct criticisms. That's not how this works. You're not even doing the correct thing. Like it's frustrating.
I don't know what the Shiite equivalent of Wahhabism is, but we know that Wahhabism isn't it. Now, why am I picking on
Shitism?
Why am I picking on Mr. Chong here? Is what frustrates me is to what degree
he just hates Malaysians.
He does.
Yeah, that's
he
what it
is Malaysian, right? Yeah, probably.
Me?
No, you hate Malaysians.
Yeah. Totally.
No, Ian Miles Chong is one of these guys where he's like he's a big Twitter person on like conservative right-wing space, but he's not from America. He's from Malaysia, and he kind of pretends that he's from America. It's a very strange dynamic that exists there.
Well, he's saber rattling on Iran really hard. Ever since the supposed reports of there being these assassination teams and everyone going around saying
I wonder
Iran's
who funds him. I wonder who's funding this man.
Oh,
who could it be?
Who do you think, Adam?
We're not in the skiff.
I would never speculate openly on the public podcast.
Is there a bell I can ring?
It's only for the skiff.
Well, what's frustrating here is just there's some amount of legitimate government documentation that there are reasons why Iran would want to assassinate an American president, right? Possibly. Yeah. There's a case there.
He killed Soleimani. Right?
But that said,
a few.
There is also a very rich tradition of false news around these sort of things in order to build a narrative, right? Iran's going to build a nuke any day now. Since 1980 till today.
There's 5 years off from it.
Yeah. Where's that bomb red line picture?
Yeah, didn't they say like 2 weeks?
2 weeks?
In the presidential debate. Yeah.
Well,
1 day.
Well, that just means that they have escalated the timeline because 30 years ago, BB was saying they're 5 years off. So they've gotten closer in those 30 years.
And last week we covered how the neocons have already picked out who they're going to install. They already said the Shah's son is right there. Why don't we just install him again? Alan Dershowitz said it on a live broadcasted event.
Dershowitz.
On the Soho Forum.
That's weird. Why would he say that?
Yeah, he's Epstein's lawyer.
Why would he say that? It's so weird.
Well, I mean,
don't be noticing things.
He thinks we should immediately bomb Iran.
We don't notice things.
So they don't.
We don't ask questions. We don't notice things.
You don't say that. It's only for the secured.
We don't do those things.
It's really weird. Oh my gosh.
I don't know. Like,
it's crazy.
Asking questions is a thing the woke right would do.
Yeah,
I'm being informed right now.
You can't just ask questions.
I wouldn't do that.
No, yeah, I can. Yeah.
Speaking of Dershowitz, so Iran attacked Israel with a second round of bombing in the last year, right? So going back real quick, since Gaza and the invasion of Gaza by Iran, there's been a border skirmish in the north. Rockets being fired back and forth.
What was it?
October 17th.
No.
Which one are you talking about?
October 7th.
7th, yeah.
Last
so
year.
3 days away.
3 days from now.
Oh, the anniversary.
Yeah, so 1 year since then.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, there's been a battle going on in North Israel with Hezbollah and Israel into Lebanon. Israel, this last only a week ago, 2 weeks ago now? Week ago, the pager bombing. Remember the pager explosions?
Yes.
Goat explosions were a false story. We laughed about them.
There was
but
no
they're not
goats?
real. Yeah, the goats, that was made up. The goats weren't exploding.
Wait, I don't remember talking about that.
Did
at
we
all.
talk about the goats exploding?
I
don't think we talked
I think
about
Joe
it.
made a joke about it or something.
Yeah,
like
I don't
that.
think we talked about
That
it.
might have been in the skiff. I don't
Something about
remember.
Arabs
I might
loving
have not
goats.
been paying attention.
That's
What
stereotype.
about that?
It's a good thing to make explode, I think.
There's some drone footage in places I've been that there's a reason people say that.
Oh, anyway.
Yeah, I've
Anyways.
heard many stories
Okay.
from vets.
Get that FLIR footage. You get a little too much detail.
Pull us back. Pull us back from the.
Hey, what are we doing?
Sorry.
What are
We're
we
gonna
talking
get
about?
canceled hard.
I don't
Some time ago, Iran shot a bunch of missiles. They were all shut down. 100% was shot down. None made it through, or at least if they did, it was less than
And
1%.
it was very scripted.
Yes.
We're going to do this. We're launching it now. Here they're flying over
They do it
Saudi
every time.
Arabia. We've already talked to Turkey and America. I mean, saving face, right?
Yeah.
But this
That-
one seems a little
that was
different.
the old one.
Yeah, that was the old one.
There was also theorized at the time, because of the speed and trajectory of these, that they are unlikely to be the newer weapons that we think they have purchased from Russia. Okay? So in Ukraine, we have a constant measure of the current weapon deployment by the Russians when they rocket stuff, right? These didn't follow those trajectories. So the theory was that these were older rockets, like the reserve.
You're still talking about the first one.
The first one.
Yep.
This time, something very different happened. And Iran attacked, and quite substantially more made through. Now, some were shot down by the Iron Dome, some were shot down by U.S. naval forces and other on-the-ground U.S. force protecting assets for U.S. assets on the ground in Israel, and then also by Jordan and a couple other areas, but way less did. So the theory is that these were a new generation of weapons, perhaps hypersonic weapons, because they move much faster and they were able to strike the ground. Go ahead, Bennett. You got something?
Yeah, I just had a quick question.
Yeah.
Weren't the Saudis and like Jordan also involved in shooting a bunch down in the first one?
Yes.
Did they do the same in the second one?
Yes, they were also involved in doing
okay.
that, but they weren't successful this
Yeah,
time.
yeah. No,
There
I
was
was just
some-
wondering if we had the same, if the dome had the same level of assistance, I guess.
Well, these are two layers of protection. You have these other countries where the rockets are flying over, shooting them at a much higher altitude.
Yeah.
And then you have the dome, which is closer to the ground.
That's why you have vassal states, everybody.
Yeah.
It's not complicated. You need a little protection, a little buffer zone.
Yeah, and you're using your tax dollars to do it. That's what the Abrahamic Accords functionally were.
Yes.
We're buying off these countries.
For ourselves.
Yes, definitely
Totally not for
America's
another
interest.
country.
Yeah, definitely not for.
Totally
No,
not.
never.
Totally not.
Well, this is the 51st state, man. It's just that simple. That's just how we treat it.
Don't be noticing.
Yeah.
The parent state, maybe.
Yeah. So this time, the funny thing about this too is we also are in a deficit. 180 ballistic missiles is the theorized quantity.
Man, we're never going to get on Ben Shapiro's show after Adam's been on.
I'm okay.
I didn't know that was a goal.
We're never going to get that Daily Wire contract.
But no Israeli casualties, perhaps one Palestinian death from the city of Jericho, which is interesting. It looks like, if you look at and there's a video of it, it looks like it was actually shot, fell out of the sky, and just happened to land on this guy, wrong place, wrong time sort of thing. Yeah, so you can get a lot of video of these things actually striking the ground.
But no deaths.
Substantial explosion with no deaths. Now, some of this was, some areas, the sirens went off and people were able to shelter. Other areas, they were so fast, they didn't even have time to. That's some of the reporting. We don't know yet what's true. If you look at like Haaretz and the Israeli papers reporting on this, they will say IDF has told us we can't report this, or IDF has not refused to release this information.
So there could be casualties.
There could be casualties. Yeah, we don't know.
Which goes into the propo from Iran, which is we strike military targets, right? Not arbitrary civilians like you guys do, right? Or whatever version of that they'll say, right?
What are you talking about? Those pager bombs were
You mean,
precise.
the Israeli bombs on churches? Are those precise? Like a few churches that are bombed? The little precision? One of the military churches that we got to get rid of?
Well,
you know what I mean?
actually, you might be able to clarify this.
What's up?
So with an incident rate of civilian casualties at 30%, would that be acceptable at what scale is that acceptable for a military operation?
Well, I mean,
because 30% seems high, right? If 1/3 of what you do.
Let me tell you this way. If I am in Afghanistan and we're doing a thing, it's much lower than that. If I'm George Washington crossing the Delaware on Christmas, I will take a lot of casualties to crush you. You know what I mean? It's all about context. So it depends on, like, for example, if people are just going to do a training mission out of the 82nd Airborne or whatever, they accept the 3% casualty rate of the jumpers. Now, most of that is for like broken ankles and stuff like that.
Right.
But people do die. It does happen.
Yeah.
And it's one of those planning factors.
But that's of your own soldiers.
That's of your own people. But as far as civilians, you barely think about. So like my job was part of, to mitigate the civilian impact, right? So what does that mean? I mean, if it's in the PSYOP context, like working with PSYOP to get messages out before, like you need to leave. And people do this all the time. It's just hard to report on that. Like, yes, you want as low as possible, right? But you have the compounding factors, like in Asheville, you have all these other problems that happen because of the disaster. You have all these other problems that happen because you're in a war zone. The markets don't work. It's tough to get supplies. You get all these other casualties that are the result of the war. Like they may not took a bullet or a bomb, but they can't get clean water. They can't get health care, XYZ, right?
Right. The collateral consequences of the war itself. And those, I wouldn't even want to measure for this. The question, like on the pager bombings, was at a 30% error rate.
Oh yeah, that was very,
you wonder, like, is that the equivalent of, there's a building, there's some terrorists in it, but there's also several families. We gave them a text message to try to get them out of the building. They're the ones that weren't terrorists.
I don't want to diatribe on it, but it's like, well, in our country, we have nice Christian values that we still have, like stuff like that, where in other countries, they don't. And that's it.
Well, this is the propo from Israel, right? Israel says we're the most moral army ever. We always do all this extra work to make sure that we don't.
And they do. Some of them, like, I'm not saying they don't try.
Yeah.
It's just they care less when they screw it up.
Yeah.
That's all.
That might be a fair point, especially if you are in the operation, like everyone's against us. We're alone in the Middle East. We are fighting for our survival, and you're constantly in this.
Yeah. When you have to say you guys bombed Dresden as a defense against yourself, we're already in bad territory. You know what I mean? Like, I think we're out of.
That is the interesting thing is that's always the talking point of the Zionist crowd is like they're the most moral.
You can say it. It's a philosophy. That's what it is.
Just making sure.
It's an idea. They call themselves Zionists. Well, because I just remember that in the Dave Smith versus Dennis Prager debate. Dennis Prager was like getting super emotional and all like triggered, and he was like, "They are the most moral army ever created and devised by man." They're it was like a.
An ad.
It was an ad. It was, but like calling them the most moral army, and there's like, what makes them more moral than these armies? Like, what's the data points that suggest that?
They have lots of arguments there. It's just that we don't have the context to really understand. Yes, it's unique morality.
It mutates with the ongoing situation.
But they have all these arguments, right? If you watch Ben Shapiro, he has 1,000 arguments for why they're the most moral. That's what I'm just trying to get at is.
I'm just recognizing the propaganda tactic of like always calling them the most moral. Like I hear that all the time.
Yes,
that phrase.
And Iran, like you said, is doing the same. They're saying we don't attack civilians. We're gonna. There was a report that the Mossad headquarters was bombed, or like some intelligence headquarters was bombed.
Yeah,
these are all the kind of
shouldn't have been standing there.
The point is to step out and say, okay, there's a lot of propaganda work being done to try to shift who is on the moral high horse here. Mm-hmm. Hezbollah is a terrorist group, according to the feds, is funded by Iran. How much they directly report to Iran is probably a continuum of a lot to not as much, and they have independent actions on the ground.
Right.
There's no doubt that Iran wants Israel to face consequences for what's going on in Gaza, because that's how they take moral high ground in the Arab world and recruit for their militias and for their power projection.
I think they want to have them face consequences for just making a country out of thin air on top of other people.
Also,
so that goes a little bit further back in
that's
Gaza.
The mythos. But that's the mythos.
Just saying, it's been around for a hot minute.
Yeah, exactly. It goes back to the Arab story about themselves as victims of Western colonialism since the end of World War I. Mm-hmm. Right? So by taking the high ground there, you're in a position where you can garner support across the Arab world and expand your power. That's not saying they're not right or wrong or whatever. It's just saying that's their angle.
Right.
So what we're seeing here, as I see it, and I think I'm on good ground here, is an escalatory spiral that we just stepped up one more notch, where they're using the new weapons. They can actually hit the ground without being shot down by the Iron Dome. They're not notifying them about where they're going to fire and when they're going to fire. And I think a lot of the cope here from the apologists in the West is we shot down all these drones and they didn't even manage to kill anybody. That's how they're covering it right now. That's how they're talking about it. And with that kind of coverage, a lot of Americans are going to think this wasn't part of an escalatory spiral. That's an incredibly dangerous part because this could be the actual first step into a regional war.
It's also a demoralizing campaign on the Iranians. Like, I want to make you think you can't touch me.
Yeah.
Right? You can't impact me. You're wasting all your stuff.
Yeah, I've seen people say that basically the ones that got through were like going to an area that didn't have anything, so they just like let it go.
They let it go. I think that's cope. That seems like cope to me.
I agree. I've seen that.
Keep in mind, how many millions of people live in Iran? 40 million?
It's a lot.
I mean, it's a lot of people.
It's a lot.
You can have a tech industry with that, especially when you have access to China.
Iranian scientists get assassinated all the time by Israel.
Yeah.
And for good reason, because they're good at some stuff. Persians are an incredible, this is ancient civilization.
It's about 90 million.
What?
90 million.
90 million? Yes.
Right.
I was
and it's also like so many Americans just think that these are a bunch of Bedouin shepherds in Iran. They think
definitely
they
not.
think it's like Iraq
very
they
much
think it's
not.
like Afghanistan and you're just like fighting these like there's like these like militia groups and stuff like no, Iran's like a developed country.
Well, in the 1930s and the 1950s, we developed Iran. We educated their elite. We brought them to the West and educated them in London and New York and all over the world, and then sent them back. We did that in Africa too. Obama's dad was one of those people in a program in the United States to bring over leaders of foreign countries and educate them here. And this is traces all over the place. Syria's president, he was educated in the West. Same program.
Gaddafi.
Do they go to Hollywood parties when they do that?
I don't know.
No parties like a Diddy party.
That's for the skiff.
Sorry. Excuse me.
Some of the propaganda talk around this actually reminded me of when Tucker interviewed Putin, and Tucker was asking him like, okay, you believe CIA did Nord Stream or something along those lines. Why don't you ever fight back against that, on the narrative front? And Putin's just like, what would be the point? America controls the entire Western propaganda apparatus.
Right.
Like, it would just be wasted time, energy, and money to fight back against this, right? You just can't do that. And some of this was just making me think about this with like the Israel dynamic and stuff like that, where you just there's such a propaganda apparatus that exists around this, where it's just like, they can't fight back.
Say something along the lines of like, we can't outspend them. Or like something like that.
Yeah, it's just like they control the entire apparatus, where it's just like how much energy and just focus you would have to put in to be able to go against that. You just can't.
Yeah, the NGO network that does most of the propos over there. It's huge. And they're not going to beat that. So if you got $100 million you're going to spend it on a hypersonic investment, which is what they did. Now they have it.
Buying them from Russia, using probably Chinese technology. Iran's center part of what we see as an evil axis forming, right? If Bush was in office, that's what he would call it, of North Korea, China, Russia, and Iran.
That has been what the neocons have been calling it.
Exactly.
They've been calling it a new axis of evil.
We just stopped using those terms, 8 years ago or whatever. But it is what it is. That's exactly how things are shaping up. And when people talk about World War II,
that term has been Nikki Haley was using that term on the debates.
She doesn't count.
She's she's the one getting the talking points from the neocons, and that's the funding, right? They've been using that terminology.
But the propo on like the Trump assassination stuff leading up to this, you know what I mean? Like Iran's trying to assassinate Trump, all that stuff. All this is wrapped into this.
And we don't even
kills two birds with one stone.
Two birds with one stone.
Kind of literally. Like, you take out Trump and then you get your war with Iran. Like, perfect.
Oh, you mean like
for them?
The deep state takes out Trump. Okay.
Well, and there's also
you blame it on Iran. What? Especially because it was so soon after that there was saber rattling in that area. That was the signal to me. It was like the day after, and you got people saying, just random accounts online saying, "Oh, it must have been Iran."
Would blame Iran if he stubbed his fucking toe, though.
He left. He's like pushing over South Carolinians in need to like. Did you know Israel's under attack?
well, and here also the thing is, if we're to believe the reports on the Trump assassination, is like with what Matt Gaetz was presenting, is it's not just Iran. There's 5 teams, and Iran is one of them. But we only focus on the Iran one, right? Like, we're not focusing on
the Ukrainian.
There's a Ukrainian group that's trying to get him. Like, that's part of the intel.
The one we gave $175 billion to? That's the one that we don't want to cover?
Also, there's 2 domestic ones. Who are the domestic ones?
I said CIA and FBI.
Do we not think Mossad is, helping feed correct intelligence to the people to come up with that?
I don't. But what's the
Like-
incentive there? I mean, Russia.
we just don't.
Trump
know.
is a huge Israel supporter. Like I don't think he's gonna.
It's not him. It's MAGA, because MAGA's split on this.
Yeah, like the movement underneath him, and also he's not like he's definitely a supporter, but he's not like a supporter.
Yeah,
You know, there's
he
a
whistles.
difference.
He whistles
Yeah.
like, I'm sick of Netanyahu.
Yeah,
Like,
there's
he's
a
the
lot
guy-
of dog whistles.
Have you seen like that video where he like totally disrespects it?
Well, and he does have. He's willing to criticize Netanyahu, which is a huge third rail in American mainstream political life for sure. Like that's,
You don't say that.
Well,
Right, you can't say that,
Trump
yeah.
specifically said in the meeting with Netanyahu, he came out of it of being like, no, I don't think Netanyahu wants any peace deals. Like he just explicitly said that.
You can't say that.
This guy's
You're, like,
crazy.
you're not allowed to say that.
Yeah.
Right?
This guy's
Yeah, because Netanyahu hasn't demonstrated that.
No, at all.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. I guess I don't know enough about how.
But there's the Kushner family and things like
He's
that.
not like
there's
getting
those
spent
dynamics.
against by AIPAC money, right? We're not in that place. And so that seems to me that could be a double-sided game on Trump's side too, where he is dog whistling to America first.
both ways.
Yeah.
I
in both
think
directions.
he's doing he's doing double-sided dog whistling.
It's Trump. It's Trump. That's what Trump
Double-sided
does.
dog whistling.
That's what he does,
That's what
baby.
he's doing.
He says stuff, everyone just reads into it. What do they want to?
Yeah, exactly.
What do they want to hear? That's right.
Yeah, it was like, what he's really doing is there's a lot of that happens in
6D
there, right?
chess. You wait till after January, then it'll be all fixed.
So the last part of this and how it's also shaping up is
He'll take out all the pedophiles.
yeah, right. QAnon.
Yeah.
Israel bombs Russian airbase in Syria at the same time.
Ukraine, right? Well,
No.
Israel bombed a Russian airbase
in Syria.
Yeah.
got
so
it,
this
got
is
it.
then there's the
I
next
was
thing,
looking
yeah.
at
there's
what was on the
history
screen.
here that
Yeah.
hopefully everybody knows.
Well, touch it.
Russians were actively fighting in
That's what she
73 in the Suez against the Israelis. The Russians do not like Israel, and Israel does not like Russia.
There's a lot of history
And this
behind
is
that, too.
old.
Yeah.
Almost since somewhere around 1917. There was an issue in Russia.
Yeah, the Bolshevik Revolution.
Which eventually they purged them, I think.
Yeah.
Stalin might have done that.
Oh, you're heading that direction. with it.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
I was like,
Oh, yes.
Well, because the Soviet Union was the first nation to recognize Israel on the diplomatic stage. The United States came second, and there was a bunch of, and this came with Golda Meir when she came up. The history is kind of like, I wasn't expecting to go into this, but the history was something like he all of a sudden got very distrustful of this because of all the negotiations that were going on with the United States, because Stalin was under the impression that Israel was going to be a client state to the Soviets, but then when it all fell through and the United States and the British came in and swooped underneath them, all of a sudden that's where Stalin got really paranoid and he started purging out the Jews amongst his cabinet, right?
Ew.
That's the history. But prior to that, they were very closely aligned because the Israel was supposed to be a socialist state under.
Well, yeah, because
the Soviets.
I mean, if you look
He
at all
just
the,
purged them for no reason?
No reason.
Oh my gosh! What an anti-Semite!
Because Golda Meir was the ambassador to the Soviet Union.
well, and
at the time.
there's also it's a historical fact and well charted by many people who are not anti-Semites or anything like that. That there was a tremendous amount of competition between radical Bolsheviks who are Jewish and Zionists, right? Like these were a lot of the same people bounce around. That's why if you go to Israel, there's lots of like the kibbutz system itself. It's a socialist system. There's all kinds of stuff about labor and manual labor, like reconnecting the Jewish people to the land of Israel. A great series if you want to listen to this, a Martyr Made series, Fear and Loathing in the New Jerusalem.
Sympathizer?
Yeah, the Nazi guy.
No, don't do that.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Sarcasm.
You can't listen to this and get that impression. That's really you should.
Joking,
I don't know.
joking.
I don't know. Some of these people, they saw a 2-minute clip and they had to go on these rants
Everything they
on
needed to know.
Piers Morgan about it.
Exactly. But my
You
point
had to
being,
bring in somebody from the House of Lords to set the record
You
straight.
shattered their whole fundamental mythos.
there's
right?
a case to be made there. And I think it is interesting because Israel is actually the first country to try to create peace in the Ukraine conflict, but then was shut down by Boris Yeltsin. Not Boris Yeltsin, sorry. The guy who looks like Boris Yeltsin, but he's from Britain.
Boris Johnson.
Sounds like him.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm talking about.
There's
Also
similar vibes there.
Yeah,
there's
right?
Similar
You know what
vibes.
I'm
I never put
saying?
that
Yeah.
there. Two Borises.
I just associate them. So partially because Israel has been coordinating with Russia in fighting Al Qaeda, who we are backing in ISIS in Syria.
Israel also backs ISIS, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Let's leave that alone.
Yeah,
we're gonna leave that out there.
According to them, that's what they were saying at the time.
Especially when they're targeting Shia for some reason.
Yeah, why are they always doing that?
I don't know why. They got ISIS people, Shia people.
They strangely also backed Hamas. It's very strange. But.
It is very
I saw fun in Hamas for a little while there. It gets a little weird longer
because they wanted to control the They wanted to control the height of the flames, according to Bibi.
But nailed it.
Yeah, right.
So
speaking of height of flames, Ukraine bombed a nuclear power plant, or Russia bombed a Ukraine bombed a nuclear power plant in Kursk, Russia, this week as well. It didn't explode, but they
just bombed it.
Yeah, just bombed it. So it didn't wasn't a nuclear bomb or anything like that. And it didn't create a nuclear explosion, but it definitely is irradiating, probably.
I got it going on the screen right now too. We won't play the audio, but yeah, you can see the mushroom cloud.
How'd they missile it? I didn't even see where the bomb was. Or is this like a sabotage team or something?
I think it was reported as a missile attack.
Yeah,
let me double check.
Missiles?
Yeah, let me double check.
Right.
Oh, you can kind of see a little bit of an explosion there.
Look at that, U.S. tax dollars. Appalachia, this is what we need instead of your water, actually.
Yeah, there's U.S. tax dollars at work right there.
Yeah.
Well, now we have to clean up this, right? So then we're going to use American companies to come in and de-irradiate it. Yeah.
A lot of people are going to get some fat.
I guess not in
wins.
Russia. That's probably not going to happen in Russia. But yeah, there you go. So that's what happened this week in our slow walk to World War III.
It's going good. You said they bombed the Russian base in Syria, which
Yeah.
they've done before, but like
air base, yeah.
Yeah, which is just another kind of escalatory spiral. Why a Russian base in Syria? Doesn't seem necessary. But there's no clear motive. I looked for like a release, a presser, real coverage. The coverage is super thin.
Well, and that is
like I get more coverage in Russian than I do in English or any Israeli newspapers. That gave me any amount of clarity. Everything else was very generic. Oh, this happened.
Well, and that is the thing is if people don't know, Russia and Syria have a very tight relationship.
Very tight.
Yes.
Very
We
tight.
talked about it earlier. Or was that before the podcast?
I can't remember if we talked about it on or not. I black out during the
I don't even know what we talked about.
Yeah, it's like,
where are you again?
Yeah, I don't know. Everything's just escalating. It's just one piece at a time. Although, it's been kind of memey on the internet lately with a lot of this. Is just that nothing ever happens. Especially with the Iran attack, it's just like, well, they did some stuff, but nothing really ever happens.
Right.
It's just
nothing's gonna change.
Yeah, nothing changes, and it's one of those things where it's like, it could continue being nothing ever happens, or
Until it
this could be
happens.
the gradual and then sudden, because that's how most major conflicts start. Is there's usually decades of context that lead up to them, and then Archduke Ferdinand happens, right?
Did we already get there, or did we get like the German issue and then they invade Poland? You know what I mean? Like, where are we at in this?
Yeah, like where are we in that cycle?
I guess you don't know until you look backwards.
Yeah, and anyway, and that doesn't actually tell you where we're at, right? Because it depends on the individual motivations of the people in play and how they're interpreting it.
Fog of war.
It seems like to me, at least in Ukraine, it's pretty clear. The goal is to punish Russia as much as possible before a presidential change or whatever, so that you can get as best a deal you can, with Russia being willing to capitulate because of civilian casualties, right? What they are trying to cultivate in Russia is civilians on the ground in Russia saying to the Russian government, we don't like being bombed.
Also, like, it's one thing you can say, like, this is one thing we'll stop doing.
Yes.
Stop shooting missiles at your nuclear power plants. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Well, also just
give us the lithium. What's the big deal?
Well, it's also is like there's all this talk about the inevitability of war with China. Like Iran is very close with China and things like.
Well, it's obviously
there's
creating
all
that
these
relationship,
pieces,
right? If you cast them both as villains and repeatedly say you're villains and evil and terrible, what are they going to do? They're going to work together, especially when you cut them out of our markets, right?
Yes.
Well, and then you did it with Russia too.
Yeah, they cut them out of
now
SWIFT,
you
right?
got-
So
yeah.
Well, and then we have the whole BRICS thing coming up and everything, right? It was just like all of these things are moving into this point, and it's like they want to. All the neocons and everything, they want to defend the unipolar world where America is the top dog, but it's just like we're creating the bipolar world with what we're doing right now. It's like everything you're doing right now is doing that.
We are our own worst enemy.
Yeah. Yeah, the neo bros, man.
Well,
like they're
and it's because of the hubris of the man of system, right? It's the idea that you can, with enough power, money, smart people, forever be the top dog in the world, the hegemony. the hegemon.
Which is utopia to them.
It is. It's utopian project, and therefore it fails, and therefore the very act of defending it creates the bipolar moment.
The Neo Bros up on the chalkboard just being like, well, that one didn't work.
Then
Slash
the Neo
that.
Bros,
We go back into the next thing.
Cross it out.
Yeah, didn't not to this isn't in there, but like didn't Vivek debate Bolton? I'd assume that's a nice little
that happen?
right side. Yeah, that happened.
Vivek debated Bolton. Why?
Oh, God.
Are you guys not
The hair
up?
debated the mustache?
Are you nowhere near what's going on? What's going on?
when
Am
did
I
this happen?
breaking news to the HR team?
No, I did not know that, buddy.
That's a skiff now.
Oh no,
You totally did. Totally happened.
Wait, it happened last night.
I know. What's up, guys?
Oh, I didn't
Santa
see
Claus
it.
shit.
Oh God.
Oh my goodness. I know.
That'll be fun.
You guys have something to watch later. Instead
Oh
of
man,
yourselves.
I wish I saw that last night. Oh man,
That'd been great.
That's unfortunate.
That's all right. We're going to talk in the skiff about Hollywood and the cults and all that stuff. So you should become a member. Join us in the skiff for our next little bit here. We're going to end it there.
Also some Diddy. There's some
Also
Diddy.
some Diddy.
Diddy.
Get into the Diddy stuff.
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick and how it applies to Diddy.
Adam might be hanging out. We'll be hanging out with us for the skiff. So join us over there. Become a member. That's how we keep the lights on. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Human Reaction. Please like, subscribe, share it around. We'll catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Human Reaction. Please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and give us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you want to become a member and support the show financially, check out humanreactionpod.com. And remember,
you know a little bit more about it from being from the Haba.
Yeah.
So what do you know about that? Are they all mafiosos?
I don't know.
Okay.